Chapter 1028. Only the dimensional passage was left. It was still filled with colorful holy light and the true fire of the sun intertwined from time to time. At the same time, in the world of heaven, around the dimensional gate dozens of kilometers away from the Templar, many angels and divine knights who were guarding this place carefully felt the energy waves of the dimensional portal. They were suspicious. That should be Kong Teichu, right? Did he disappear? A handsome angel couldn't sense Zhou Xian's existence and was confused. That was a real angel with a pair of jade wings on his back. He emitted a pure holy light and was as powerful as Saint Adam. However, there were dozens of such angels there. They flapped their wings slowly and soared in the sky. They were extremely sacred. In addition, there were hundreds of divine knights riding unicorns and wearing golden armor. They were extraordinarily powerful, and each of them was as powerful as a Foundation establishment overlord. They were the guardians of the dimensional gate. They sensed that there was a heretic invading this place. They speculated that it was likely Zhou Xian and planned to kill him directly. There's only one dimensional portal from Earth to heaven. He can only enter from here. Saint Jean, the information officer of the Templar, was also there. She looked serious and uneasy. I've checked the prayers from the lower worlds. Kong Teichu is very powerful. We must guard against him. The leading divine knight sneered and said with disdain, he's just an ant. They're just ants from the lower realm. How could they have the ability to travel through the spatial passageway as they please? There's the true sun flame and the supreme holy light there. I'm afraid he's already been burned to ashes. Everyone thought so too. Since the establishment of heaven, ordinary humans would never be able to travel through it unless they were members of the Light Holy Clan or devout believers. They would have been burned to death long ago. It's a false alarm. It's ridiculous that we're paying so much attention to an ant from the lower worlds. However, he's already wiped out the Holy See and lost all his believers. If he wants to expand again, he'll have to show his strength. It's going to take a lot of effort. I'm afraid the divine ancestor will send many people to the lower worlds and kill all of his henchmen. Just as everyone was about to go home, the dimensional passage suddenly opened. The space door suddenly shattered and a beam of golden light shot out. Boom! The space-time gate rippled for a while before it collapsed and dissipated. As Zhou Xian revealed his true body, the heptagold granules withdrew into his dantian. At this time, all of Zhou Xian's hair had been burned away. His head was bald and his clothes were ragged. His entire body was covered in burns and dense blisters were emitting billowing black smoke. There was even a wound that ran diagonally from his left shoulder to his right rib, almost cutting him in half. It was a holy light that spanned 1,000 meters, enough to kill a golden core cultivator. If it weren't for the fact that he had cultivated 3 divine bodies and 1 divine ability, he would have died a violent death. However, Huang Linger was not hurt at all. Seeing this, she could not help but be moved to tears. Zhou Xian also sighed in his heart. He patted her head with a pained expression. This girl was really infatuated. She actually followed him here, completely unafraid of the threat of death. If something were to happen to him, how could he still be alive? As soon as they saw Zhou Xian and Zhou Xian appear, the faces of the angels and divine knights changed. They surrounded Zhou Xian and Huang Linger. Haha, are you Kong Teichu? The winged angel sized up Zhou Xian curiously. His eyes were full of disdain and disdain. Your breath is so dirty. It reeks of the mortal world. You are so ugly and rough. Your skin is so dark. You look like a wild beast. Zhou Xian didn't pay any attention to this angel. He didn't even care about the holy knights. Instead, he looked around and sighed. What abundant spiritual energy. It is not inferior to the stellar sky domain. There should be a lot of resources for me to seize and use. Especially this kind of light. He narrowed his eyes and looked at the second, slightly smaller sun in the sky. He smiled and said, there is indeed a man-made sun. There is indeed an artificial sun. Is it made by the Holy Clan of Light? Their forging skills should not be so profound. Being ignored by Zhou Xian, the winged angel frowned and scolded arrogantly. You are Kong Teichu. You are the one who destroyed the Holy See. You have offended the true God. Your sin is unforgivable. Kneel down and surrender immediately. Zhou Xian stared at him. The Light Saint clan was different from ordinary humans. At the Foundation establishment level, they would have formed a halo of holy light. One halo represented the first level of the foundation establishment level. 9 halos represented the 9th level of the foundation establishment level. When the halo completely solidified and formed a light crystal, it was equivalent to forming a core. This winged angel had a halo of holy light in his dantian. His strength was equivalent to the first level of the foundation establishment level. However, he was still made of flesh and blood. The only difference was that he cultivated a saint art and could control light. The divine knights were obviously more powerful. They were basically at the middle or late stage of the foundation establishment level. Forget it. Let's kill. Zhang Tian snorted inwardly. Without another word, he unleashed his true essence and attacked. Plang, plang. The gung metal chi weapon condensed and slashed towards the angel like a knife cutting through water. Kong Teichu, this is the heavenly kingdom. How dare you be so presumptuous? The angel's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. He flapped his wings and they flickered with sparkling and translucent light. They emitted a vast amount of holy light that protected his body. Boom. The wings were condensed with the supreme holy light. They were very solid and tough. They were strong enough to withstand artillery fire and missiles. However, at this moment under Zhang Tian's blade, it was unable to block for even a second and shattered like glass. Then the gung metal chi sword rushed forward and cut the angel in half. Blood spurted out and the holy light disappeared. The angel died in the blink of an eye. His divine soul was destroyed. What? He can even destroy a divine soul? Many angels cried out in shock. They couldn't believe it. Even the powerful divine knights were shaken. They lived in the heavenly kingdom and absorbed the power of faith through the passage of faith every day to condense their divine souls. Even if their physical bodies were destroyed, their divine souls could live for hundreds of years. They could even condense a physical body with the help of divine power. But now he was actually killed by Zhang Tian. This guy is very powerful. We can't underestimate him. Let's attack together and kill him. The leading divine knight said coldly. His face was grave and his killing intent soared into the sky. He rode on a unicorn that was over 3 meters tall. His strength was as great as a mountain, crushing mountains and rivers as he rushed towards Zhang Tiansha. The unicorn had a pair of wings that were more than 10 meters long. There was a spiral horn on its forehead. It was flashing with lightning and holy light, giving people a sense of majesty, nobility, and holiness. Facing this, Zhang Tian only threw out a fist, rushing into the sky. Plang. Her jade-white fist smashed into the unicorn's head, causing its head to explode. The fist continued to rise and hit the divine knight's chest like a cannonball. Suddenly, the divine knight's armor was shattered and a bloody hole appeared in his chest. He was sent flying dozens of meters away with his unicorn. He struggled to get up, but he could not get up. At this moment, the strength that Zhang Tian displayed caused one's heart to palpitate. He could probably suppress any powerful person on earth. However, both the angels and the divine knights were extremely arrogant. They definitely wouldn't sit back and watch a mere mortal go on a killing spree in the kingdom of heaven and do whatever he wanted. Zhang Tian's counterattack had infuriated them. Kill him. Sinful blasphemer, I will tear you into pieces and throw you into the fire of hell. We are the servants of God. Are you still not going to submit? At this moment, the divine knights and angels were filled with murderous intent. They shouted and attacked together. The angel of death chanted an incantation, trying to bewitch Zhang Tian's divine soul. The angel of wrath looked ferocious, spitting out flames of fury that were dozens of meters long, trying to burn Zhang Tian into ashes. The angel of strength was full of blood qi and had a powerful physical body. He shot towards Zhang Tian like a cannonball. The divine knights were also very powerful. Any one of them could defeat a sage. Their battle intent seethed as they repeatedly executed killer moves. Some slashed down with swords that were like silver waterfalls that descended. Some soared through the sky with spears that crushed mountains and the earth as they pierced towards Zhang Tian. Some smashed down with shields that were like a myriad of mountains smashing down, and they were capable of crushing a heavenly immortal realm expert to death. Blasphemer! You underestimate me. I'm here to kill God. Zhang Tian laughed and stomped his right foot on the ground. The earth trembled. The divine body of gung metal was activated, and the true essence of gung metal formed a shield around him. All the attacks were like ants trying to shake a tree. They could not shake Zhang Tian at all. He stomped the ground again. The swaying divine tree exploded. Thousands of branches tore the sky and minced the heavenly state's elites into a rain of flesh. Poof, poof, poof. Blood spurted out and waves of blood rushed to the sky. The branches of the swaying divine tree pierced through the holy light, crushed the weapons, entangled the shields, and penetrated the chests of the angels and divine knights. In an instant 20 elites died. He stomped his foot again. Roar. A 300-meter-long azure dragon spat out black water and danced wildly in the air, brandishing its fangs and claws. Clang. The mountains and rivers trembled. The ground around Xianxia sank into a deep pit with a radius of hundreds of meters. Everywhere the darkwater azure dragon passed, space shattered while mountains shook, and it pressed down upon all the experts to the point they wailed like ghosts and howled like wolves. It seemed as if it intended to obliterate the heavens and the earth. He slapped the ground with his claw, and a huge pit appeared on the ground. More than a dozen divine knights and their unicorns were smashed to pieces. Joan of Arc was dumbfounded as she looked at this scene. Although she was prepared for it, it still set off a storm. Chapter 1029. At this moment, Xianxia's strength and terror had turned into an indelible impression that was deeply engraved in this woman's heart. These holy knights and angels were pure holy clan of light. They were the true gods in the eyes of the people on earth. But at this moment they were like ants before Xianxia, and they were crushed mercilessly and easily. They were utterly unable to withstand a single exchange. Ouch! Suddenly, a swaying branch shot through the air like a green venomous snake. Saint Joan of Arc was frightened as if she had just woken up from a nightmare. She slashed the holy sword in her hand. But the long sword that had been blessed by the elders of the Templar was immediately shattered by the branch. The branch was about to penetrate her chest in the blink of an eye. Kung Techu, I'm from the mortal world. Don't kill me. Saint Joan of Arc's face turned pale. In a hurry she exclaimed and begged. On earth, Saint Joan of Arc had worshipped the Holy See for more than 10 years. She was devout and fanatical, hoping to ascend to heaven. After her soul ascended to heaven and her body was reconstructed, Saint Joan of Arc was even more ashamed to mention her identity in the mortal world. But at this moment she didn't expect that her humble origin would become a life-saving talisman. You've been partially reconstructed, but you do have the blood of human beings on earth. Well, I'll let you lead the way. I won't kill you. Xianxia laughed and swung his sword. The seventh metal true essence turned into a thin line that was thousands of meters long. It was dazzling. There was nothing in the world except for the sword. Clang. Suddenly, the rest of the powerhouses were killed by Xianxia's sword. Their bodies fell like rain. Seeing this scene, the leader of the divine knights guarding the spatial gate lay on the ground, dumbfounded. His soul almost left his body as he trembled. He never expected that there would be such a powerful being in the mortal world. He killed dozens of angels and holy knights in the blink of an eye. He was like a demon. Although these angels were only two-winged angels and their level was relatively low, they were still angels. These holy knights could kill tens of thousands of mortals by themselves. Kung Techu, don't kill me. I'll help you. I'll beg the sage emperor to spare your life. You are very powerful. You even have the chance to become the Pope of Earth. But you need me to mediate. The leader activated a secret technique. Holy light lingered around the wound on his chest. His flesh and blood regenerated and rapidly healed. As he retreated, he begged Xianxia for mercy. I don't need him to forgive me because I want to kill him too. Xianxia's eyes were cold and emotionless. There wasn't a trace of emotion on his face as he slowly approached. If you dare to kill me, the evil bounty command will be activated immediately. You will be hunted down by all the experts in heavenly country, and you will have nowhere to hide. You will die without a doubt. Feeling Xianxia's chilling killing intent, the leader took out a token, pointed at Xianxia and shouted hysterically. Evil hunting order. Seeing this, Saint Jean let out a cry of surprise. Her face was full of fear as if she had seen an evil ghost. This token was the famous evil hunting order in heavenly country. It came from the hands of the ancient true God and contained vast holy light and divine power. The method of making it had long been lost. In heavenly country there were only dozens of them. It was impossible for people who were not from the same plane to have them. In fact, the leader's status and cultivation were not high. However, he was in a dangerous position and shouldered important responsibilities. Therefore he was given one by the divine ancestor. The price to activate this token was also very heavy. It required half of one's blood essence to activate it. Once anyone killed the expert wanted by the evil hunting order, they would be blessed by the ancient true God and completely take over the divine power and holy light contained in the token. They would even take over all the cultivation of the wanted person. If anyone who carried out this evil hunting order failed the mission and was killed, their blood essence, holy light and magic power would also be absorbed by the evil hunting order. This would make the evil hunting order contain more divine power and holy light, which would be a fatal temptation to those who came after them. It was precisely because of the special attribute of the evil hunting order that once anyone was wanted by it, they would become the enemy of the entire heavenly country. Even if they had great ability, they could not live for more than a few days. After the leader obtained this token, he had been treating it as a treasure and refining it every day as his biggest trump card. At this moment he took it out to threaten Zhou Xian. "Ah, I have never thought of letting go of heavenly country. Why would I be afraid of your pursuit?" Of course, Zhou Xian recognized this magic treasure, so he was too lazy to listen to the introduction of the evil hunting order and Saint Jean. His eyes flashed coldly, and the corner of his mouth outlined a touch of ridicule. "Die." Suddenly the soul devourer erupted. The leader groaned and blood spurted out from his 7 orifices like arrows. His pupils were dilated, his body was stiff, and his soul was destroyed by the soul devourer. But at the moment of his death, the token in his hand exploded silently, and a vast blood-red light burst out from his body and the token, forming an ancient Hebrew word, demon, in the air. This demon word was bright red and very condensed as if it was cast in blood. It was more than 10 meters in radius, flashing with red light and floating thousands of meters above Zhou Xian's head. It was unusually dazzling and conspicuous. Zhou Xian looked up at the blood-red word, but there was no trace of emotion on his face. He pondered for a while and took out a few dragon tendons about hundreds of meters long from the sky-devouring demonic gourd and cast a secret technique. These dragon tendons were obtained by Zhou Xian in the heavenly star domain's Jade Well Peak and had been refined several times. As Zhou Xian's mind moved, the dragon tendons suddenly divided into several strands as if they were alive. They twisted like snakes and tied up the corpses. "You lead the way." "To the Saint Hall." Then Zhou Xian grabbed Huang Linger's waist, rode on a unicorn that looked healthy and soared into the sky. He raised his hand and pointed at Saint Joan of Arc and said coldly. Saint Joan of Arc had no choice but to lead the way for Zhou Xian. The woman secretly prayed in her heart that it would be best to attract some experts to kill Zhou Xian and escape. Zhou Xian carried hundreds of corpses and swaggered toward the Saint Hall. Such a big fanfare could be said to be overwhelming. Wherever he passed, the wind and thunder would burst and the earth would shake. The momentum was terrifying. The huge demon word was dripping with blood and emitting a red glow that was thousands of meters long. Even dozens of kilometers away it was clearly visible. As soon as the heavenly kingdom powerhouses below saw this word, it was as if a stone had caused 1,000 ripples. They could no longer calm down. This is the evil hunting order. It was released by the Saint Hall. Whoever kills him will get the blessing of the Saint Hall. It's very useful. Demon. It's the demon from the lower realm. Many tyrannical life forms, not only the Holy Light clan in the Kingdom of Heaven, but even some ancient demon beasts showed a greedy light in their eyes. They were eager to make a move. As long as they killed Zhou Xian, it was better than serving the Saint Hall for 100 years. But then, they saw the dozens of corpses scattered behind Zhou Xian like a cloak and couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. These are the angels and holy knights guarding the space gate. They were killed by him alone. This kid's strength is extraordinary. We can't fight him head-on. Let's wait and see. Many experts had fear in their eyes and dispelled the idea of intercepting Zhou Xian. They were deeply shocked and intimidated by Zhou Xian. But this news had already spread to the entire Kingdom of Heaven like an earth-shattering earthquake. Earth's demon Kong Techu had attacked, and the evil hunting order was activated. This meant that once anyone killed Zhou Xian, they would get the blessing of the ancient gods and obtain endless benefits. At least their cultivation would increase by several levels. Whether it was the Holy Light clan, the servants of the Holy Light clan, or even the large demon beasts left behind from the barbaric era, it was an irresistible temptation. Zhou Xian was very familiar with the Holy Light clan. In terms of the universe's dimension, the Holy Light clan was still the human race. It was just that their physique and techniques were special. The titles of Saint, Holy King, Holy Lord, and so on were only set by the Holy See on earth. After all, such titles could be intimidating and seemed very stylish and sacred. But in fact they were only at the early stage of foundation establishment. Here they still followed the common divisions of cultivation. Body tempering, qi refining, foundation establishment, golden core, and so on. Of course their physique was special. They didn't cultivate true essence but the power of holy light. The symbol of foundation establishment was the formation of rings in the energy reserve. The more rings there were, the higher the level. The golden core was not like an ordinary golden core. It was a light crystal that contained holy light. Under the guidance of Saint Joan of Arc, Zhang Tian rushed to the Saint Hall, but at the same time his divine sense was also scanning this strange and magical world. Chapter 1030. At this time Zhang Tian discovered that there were many human skeletons on the Mangu Mountain. They were a vast expanse of white bones that stretched as far as the eye could see. They were densely packed, numbering in the tens of thousands, piling up like a mountain. These were the skeletons of the human race on Earth. Some of them had been there for a long time and had already turned yellow. When monsters stepped on them they would explode and smoke would rise, but some of them were still fresh and dripping with blood. On some trees, there were many half-eaten human beings hanging like jerky. They were all mortals from Earth. They looked at the sky weakly and motionlessly. Only their eyes flashed from time to time, proving that they were still alive. In addition, there were also some people who were imprisoned in cages and fed on insect leaves. Because these insect leaves contained spirit qi, they were white and fat and looked very delicious. Seeing this, Zhang Tian frowned. Huang Linger wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. She wanted to persuade Zhang Tian to save these people. He looked at the Templar. Zhang Tian's lips curled into a cold smile as he thought, sure enough. There are 3 spiritual energy recovery seeds here. And the spiritual energy they contain is not to be underestimated. Together with a few from the West Earth, I'm afraid I can build the 9 dragons guiding array. Qinger and that greedy girl are basically safe. This trip is really worth it. He didn't want to waste even a minute. He just wanted to get the spiritual energy recovery seeds. Let's go. Zhang Tian's eyes were cold and indifferent. In the end he didn't make a move. Seeing Zhang Tian's terrible smile, Saint Joan couldn't help but tremble. Her heart suddenly jumped and she cursed in her heart. Why aren't there any experts? Why hasn't any expert appeared yet? Can't you guys see the huge demon character floating above our heads? Hurry up and kill him. Otherwise he will bring me to the Holy Church. Even if he doesn't kill me, the Holy Church will kill me. The woman was praying. Suddenly the air roared and the earth trembled. A golden light flashed in the forest on the horizon, like a golden rainbow piercing through the sun. At the same time, colorful brilliance rose from the forest, chasing Zhang Tian from all directions. On the ground, the beast tide erupted. Enormous snow leopards, rhinoceroses, black bears, giant apes, and many other strange-looking beasts trampled over mountains and rivers, breaking trees that would take a man to wrap his arms around, and gathered in an endless stream. The many lights in the sky paused. The leader was actually a pterosaur with huge wings that were 300 meters long. Looking at its body, it was abnormally huge like the clouds in the sky. Its red scales were dense and flames lingered around it. It was a shocking sight. This dragon had already evolved into a human face, 2 arms and 2 legs. Moreover, its face looked as if it had been carved by a knife and an axe. It was extremely handsome. However, its golden pupils were vertical, and its dragon claws and wings had not been removed. The dragon claws were below its arms, making it look very strange. Behind him there were also griffins, peacocks, parrots, and so on. There were more than 10 of them and they were all half human and half beast. They flowed with resplendent light like mercury, and they were very mysterious and powerful. The unicorn that Zhang Tian was sitting on was so frightened that its eyes were filled with fear. It knelt on the ground and surrendered. It let out mournful cries and shivered. No matter what Zhang Tian did, it did not dare to move in the slightest. Zhang Tian had no choice but to get down from the unicorn with and coldly looked at the pterosaur in the sky. Seeing this scene, Saint Joan's face was happy. This pterosaur's origin was extraordinary. It was said that it was born in the era of the ancient gods. It had lived for many years and reached the middle stage of the foundation building. It had once occupied this Mangu mountain and killed many experts of the Holy Light clan. Later, the Holy Emperor was furious and personally suppressed it, only then was it subdued. However, the Holy Emperor thought that its cultivation was strong and it was not easy to cultivate, so he did not kill it. Instead, he took it as a mount and usually raised it in the Mangu mountain. Greetings to the Hellfire Winged Dragon King. Congratulations to the Hellfire Winged Dragon King for killing the demon, obtaining the Holy Emperor's favor and achieving unparalleled fame. The Hellfire Winged Dragon King's power is monstrous, and his magic power is deep. We all admire him. Many strange beasts on the ground and in the sky kowtowed to the Holy Fire Winged Dragon King, and flattered him in human language. Their facial expressions were lifelike and their eyes were flattering. They were also very good at flattering and their intelligence was not low. Okay, you all can watch the battle. This Dragon King can suppress this demon on earth alone. The Hellfire Winged Dragon King said with his arms crossed. His expression was very cold and arrogant, with a disdainful demeanor. Yes. These strange beasts spread out a few miles and surrounded Zhang Tian from afar, leaving only the Hellfire Winged Dragon King to face Zhang Tian. You want to stop me? Zhang Tian frowned and mocked. You're just a beast, you're too weak. Get out of the way and let your master come to see me. Kong Teichu, you're courting death. The Hellfire Winged Dragon King was arrogant. He did not expect Zhang Tian to be so strong and could not help but shout angrily. Don't think that you're so great just because you killed Saint Adam. When I was dominating this world, he was still a little kid playing with mud and I chased after him and beat him up. Beast, is my name something you can call? Zhang Tian's eyes turned cold and a murderous intent appeared. Ant from Earth still jumping around. Do you know that we often go down to the lower realm to eat people? In the Middle Ages, those heretics who were executed by the Holy See were actually eaten by us. I don't know how many weak and delicious worms like you I've eaten. Roast him. I want medium well. Compared to the master of Mangu Mountain, you're just a weak worm. Kneel down and surrender. The other exotic beasts also pointed at Zhang Tian and roared, crazily flattering the Hellfire Winged Dragon King. In the scriptures of the Holy See, it said that there are dragons in hell that swallow fire and eat people. Turns out that hell and heaven are originally one family. Zhang Tian tilted his head and glanced at Saint Joan of Arc, full of disappointment. He shook his head gently and said with a mocking tone. Saint Joan of Arc's face was slightly red and she sighed in her heart, but she did not know how to explain it to Zhang Tian. Or rather, she had no way to explain it at all. That's right. Mangu Mountain was also known as Hell Mountain. In fact, it was the origin of the legend of hell in the teachings of the Holy See. In the Middle Ages, when the Holy See was popular, heretics were executed and sacrificed to the Winged Dragon King through the altar as food. Even the Winged Dragon King had once opened a space channel and caught living people to raise and breed them as livestock. It was said that there were tens of thousands of such livestock, imprisoned in cages, and if they wanted to eat them they would wash them and eat them. In addition, there were also some servants of the kingdom of heaven, because they did not fulfill their duties and did not do their job well. They were sent to Mangu Mountain as livestock and eaten by the Winged Dragon King. In this world there was no hell, it was originally heaven. But because some people did not believe in the Holy See and did not yearn for the kingdom of heaven, so the kingdom of heaven opened up hell. It's not as good as the spirit of Wuxia's. Things are not uniform, but they are sentimental. And the world is the same, but the same is the same. Zhang Tian shook his head in his heart, secretly despising the Holy See and the Holy See. The people of Wuxia have always recognized the diversity and differences of things, even if in the end, they still recognize the different path, and allow others to have completely different paths and forms. The people of Wuxia have always adhered to the principle of seeking common ground while reserving differences. I will never force you to believe in me, worship me, you can have your own beliefs and your own path. Wuxia dared to affirm that others were definitely in a different world. This kind of tolerance, openness, multilateralism and magnanimity was definitely not something that the Western Holy See or even the Kingdom of Heaven's Holy See could compare to. Are you still not going to submit? Die. The Winged Dragon King roared, the sound waves turning into substance, piercing through the clouds and splitting the sky, bombarding the 9 heavens and 10 earths, stirring up the wind and clouds and bombarding Zhang Tian. The sound waves rolled, shrill and ear-piercing, and contained great power. Suddenly the mountain rocks exploded, large tracts of trees burned and broke, turning into fine powder, and the bones on the ground that had been lying on the ground for decades were crushed. At the same time, the sound waves had yet to arrive. He opened his mouth and spat out a flame more than 300 meters long, wanting to burn Zhou Xian into ashes. The sea of fire burned the sky. The temperature was extremely high, instantly melting the mountain rocks into magma within a 1-kilometer radius. Stinky lizard, I'm already being merciful by not killing you, but you don't know what's good for you and still dare to act rashly. Zhou Xian raised his eyebrows, revealing a hint of anger, but only waved his sleeves. Bang! The incomparably vast and surging seventh metal true essence, like stones across the sky, pushed out like countless meteorites. If the sound waves and flame attacks of the winged dragon king were like a vast ocean, Zhou Xian's seventh metal true essence, which was already solid, was like a meteorite smashing down, was like a missile across the sky. The winged dragon king could not resist at all. In just a breath of time, bang bang bang, the flames and sound waves were all shattered and exploded. Not good. Feeling the vast true essence surging, the winged dragon king's heart was alarmed, and the pride and contempt on his face disappeared in an instant, replaced by deep fear and surprise. Chapter 1031. The Hellfire Winged Dragon King naturally knew that the leader of the Divine Knights killed by Zhou Xian was at the late stage of Foundation establishment. But that was only a saint's spell. In terms of combat power, he was no weaker than the leader of the Divine Knights. After all, demonic beasts were known for their powerful bodies, which were indestructible and powerful. This strength was enough to make up for their lower cultivation and other shortcomings. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to wreak havoc in the Manga Mountain for many years until the Saint Emperor personally took action to suppress him. But at this time, facing Zhou Xian's vast true essence, the Winged Dragon King felt that he was like a speck of dust. Zhou Xian could send him flying with a raise of his hand. He flapped his huge wings and soared into the sky, his speed exceeding the sound barrier. He rushed left and right, trying to avoid the rolling seventh metal true essence. But it was too late. He was wrapped in the hurricane-like seventh metal true essence and flew out like a small wooden board being lifted by a monstrous wave. He sank and floated up again, looking very embarrassed. It wasn't until he was pushed out a kilometer away and smashed a mountain that the Winged Dragon King stopped. What? This human is too powerful. Many demonic beasts' faces changed drastically. Their eyes were filled with fear and disbelief. At this time, the seventh metal true essence pressed down like thousands of mountains. Their bones creaked as they felt a terrible pressure. Some directly knelt on the ground and smashed a deep hole in the ground. Even Saint Joan couldn't believe it, as if she had seen a demon. The Winged Dragon King guarded the Manga Mountain and was very powerful. Before, he had even killed a level 9 Seraph, which was equivalent to a level 9 Foundation establishment, but he couldn't even defeat Zhou Xian. Moreover, Zhou Xian just waved his sleeve, and a vast amount of true essence gushed out and sent the winged dragon flying. This was too terrifying. At this time, the Winged Dragon King was lying in a pile of rocks, his body stained with blood and his flesh torn. There were big holes in his wind and thunder wings as if they were shot by a rocket. His right leg was broken and blood gushed out like a tide, revealing the white bone stubble. His combat power had surpassed the Earth's Sky Immortals and Saint Venerables, reaching the peak of Foundation establishment, but he was still beaten so miserably. And this was just a casual wave of Zhou Xian's sleeve. If Zhou Xian moved his finger and destroyed his head or heart, would he still be alive? I'll kill you. I'm going to barbecue you into a meat skewer, sprinkle some pepper on it, and eat you until there's nothing left. I'm going to turn you into shit. However, the Winged Dragon King was filled with arrogance. He was bathed in blood and went berserk. His pair of vertical pupils shot out streaks of cold light. His face was very sinister and his anger overflowed to the heavens. Back then, he relied on his powerful physical body to roam unhindered in the heavenly kingdom, and no one could defeat him. Even after being subdued by the sage emperor, no one dared to provoke him. When had he ever suffered such a huge loss? Especially when the person who defeated him was a mortal from Earth. He had eaten countless mortals like this. In his eyes, Zhou Xian was just a plate of dessert, not even qualified to be a main course. At this moment his mind was filled with rage and he did not consider whether he could be Zhang Tian's opponent at all. Flying. The Hellfire Winged Dragon King used a few saint techniques to repair the wounds, and opened his mouth to spit out a dragon's spear. This dragon's spear grew bigger with the wind. Its shape was simple and unadorned and it was filled with dazzling holy light. It seemed to have an extraordinary origin. The Holy Dragon Spear, this is a treasure personally blessed by the Sage Emperor, and he actually gave it to him. Seeing this, many strange beasts exclaimed, both envious and admiring. Kong Teichu, this time you're dead for sure. This is a sacred weapon, there aren't many of them in Heavenly Kingdom, how can you withstand it? A griffin's strange beast shook its head, its expression was very vivid, looking at Zhang Tian with ridicule as if Zhang Tian was already a dead man. And Saint Joan could not help but gently shake her head and sigh. This was the difference between Heavenly Kingdom and Earth. No matter how strong your talent is, no matter how wide your magical power is, I'm blessed by the heavens, occupying resources and having many magical weapons of unknown origin, how can you fight me head-on? Boom. This time, when the Winged Dragon King soared into the air and stabbed out with his spear, the power was completely different from before. Between heaven and earth, suddenly a blazing holy light filled the air, pure and flawless but with vast power. Pillars of light as thick as buckets descended from the sky, enveloping the winged dragon's body and converging on the dragon's spear in his hand. Moreover, his wings vibrated with wind and thunder, and lightning as thick as an arm rushed out, and flames from his mouth intertwined with it, all converging into the dragon's spear, turning into endless holy light. In the end, the winged dragon held the spear with both hands, as if he was controlling a real sun, and pierced towards Zhang Tian. I'm going to burn you to ashes. The Winged Dragon King roared ferociously, the spear in his hand shook, and the endless bright holy light turned into a long spear shadow about 100 feet long, like a high-speed train fiercely piercing towards Zhang Tian. This spear was comparable to a blow from a golden core powerhouse, and could pierce through an aircraft carrier. Haha, the sacred weapon has appeared, Kong Teichu is dead for sure this time. The endless blessings and holy light of the ancient gods in the hunting order all belong to the Winged Dragon King this time. We can eat Kong Teichu. That kid's bloodline is so powerful it must be very nutritious. Roast him medium well. Sprinkle more cumin. Many beasts looked at the sky excitedly, and saliva flowed out of their mouths like small streams. Just when everyone thought that Zhang Tian was definitely going to die, Zhang Tian stretched out his jade-white right hand and flicked his finger. You're just a little lizard and you dare to call yourself an entity? Go to hell. In an instant the sky fell and the earth cracked. The sun and the moon were upside down, and the dimension seemed to be shattered by Zhang Tian's finger. This finger could hold the sky and tear the earth apart. Zhang Tian's gunmetal divine body had reached phenomenal success, and it was the most powerful among the 3 divine bodies. Therefore the gunmetal finger aura could completely display Zhang Tian's best state. After Zhang Tian flicked his finger, many beasts felt that the world was shaking and the dimension was becoming unstable. The finger radiance was resplendent and dazzling. It was as if a sun was rolling out. There was nothing else in the world except for the finger. Although Zhang Tian's finger attack was extremely simple, it was powerful enough to kill a golden core cultivator. Oh no. Seeing this, the Winged Dragon King's eyes were immediately filled with fear. He flapped his wings and tried to fly away. But it was already over. The finger aura flashed across the sky like a missile and drew a straight golden line. It immediately cut through the sacred light as if it were tofu, and then hit the divine ancestor dragon's spear. This dragon spear was made and blessed by the sacred emperor himself, so it was extremely powerful and indestructible. If the Winged Dragon King were to go to the mortal world with this spear, it would be able to defeat the armies of the superpowers and defeat Yi Tianren and St. Paul. This was the power of a sacred artifact. However, under Zhang Tian's finger, many shocking cracks immediately appeared on the divine ancestor dragon's spear. Then it cracked and shot in all directions like shrapnel. Boom. Hundreds of bombs seemed to have exploded on Mount Mangu. Airwaves surged and flames surged into the sky. The earth-shattering sound made many small beasts fall to the ground and foam came out of their mouths. Some of them even had their eardrums broken and their heads exploded. Their organs were damaged and blood spurted out of their orifices. Even those who were stronger than them were still able to withstand the pressure, but they still found it hard to bear. They staggered backward, vomiting profusely. With Zhang Tian and Pterosaur as the center, the terrifying shockwave created a ring of clouds that continued to spread out. It had not dissipated yet, even after reaching 3 kilometers. The berserk pressure bombarded the ground with a radius of several hundred meters. A deep pit several meters deep was formed and the mountain range collapsed. The winged dragon was knocked a few hundred meters away again and was embedded in a mountain. It couldn't climb out for a long time. The power of one finger was terrifying. Was he still an ordinary person? Many beasts were so scared that their saliva turned into cold sweat and they trembled all over. I'm afraid that only an archangel can do this. No, even an archangel can't do it. Only a seraph can't. Only the master of the sacred mountain or the elders can win. Many beasts were very intelligent. Their expressions were vivid and there was deep fear and shock in their eyes. They prostrated themselves on the ground and trembled. At this moment the winged dragon king's entire body was filled with broken bones and tendons, and he was vomiting blood. Especially when he saw that the dragon spear blessed by the sacred emperor had shattered to the point where only a small portion of the spear remained, he was so frightened that his soul almost left his body. The winged dragon king wasn't a brute. In fact, he had lived for thousands of years. He immediately kowtowed and said with a flattering face, "Cultivator, you're so powerful. I'm willing to submit to you and be your mount. I'll lead these beasts and help you take down the sacred hall." Chapter 1032. As soon as these words came out, many strange beasts were shocked and couldn't believe it. "Pterosaur King, aren't you too shameless? I didn't expect you to betray us so quickly." As for Saint Joan of Arc, she turned to look at Zhang Tian. Although the Mangu Mountain wasn't one of the 10 holy mountains, it had gathered tens of thousands of large and small savage beasts, and its strength was actually comparable to a holy mountain. If Zhang Tian took them in, his strength would increase and his chances of winning would be greater. At this time, the pterosaur struggled out of the cave, and a trace of pride appeared on his face, full of confidence. Zhang Tian didn't dare to kill him. Because he also had chips and power, and an expert like Kong Teichu naturally understood the pros and cons. You think too highly of yourself. You are not worthy of being my mount. These barbaric beasts are even more unworthy to be my subordinates. Zhang Tian's face revealed a faint ridicule. What do you mean? The pterosaur king's face was filled with shock and anger. He flapped his wings and wanted to escape. All of you must die. With a low shout, Zhang Tian patted the heaven-devouring demonic gourd. Suddenly, thousands of flying swords spurted out like a canopy of fine needles. When the flying swords came out, they were as thin as ox hair, but they immediately grew in size with the wind like swimming fish and then even bigger, especially the 9 main flying swords, which were all 100 meters long. Many flying swords turned into a torrent of metal pouring down. The pterosaur's body was pierced through by 3 main flying swords, nailing it to the ground. "Let me go. Kong Teichu, I am the mount of the Holy Emperor. If you dare to kill me, the Holy Hall will not forgive you." The pterosaur king screamed and threatened. Blood flowed from his wounds and his huge wings flapped, causing boulders to roll and trees to shatter, but he was still unable to struggle free. Immediately after, another 6 flying swords pierced his body without hesitation. The winged dragon king could no longer hold on. Its body exploded, turning into a rain of sparkling flesh that scattered down. Its millstone-like head rolled far away. A shadow of his soul broke free and tried to escape, but it was instantly swallowed by the black soul devourer released by Zhang Tian. At the same time, 10,000 flying swords rained down like a storm, and they surged through the Manku Mountains like a flash flood. Flying swords, sharp, merciless, hit the target with one strike. Wherever the flying sword passed, a curtain of blood filled the air. Arrows of blood shot out, and in the end the blood flowed like a waterfall. One after another, the flying swords pierced through the chests of the exotic beasts or circled around their necks. Their huge heads tumbled to the ground. There were even hundreds of flying swords that swarmed towards the more powerful exotic beast. Those that were hit immediately turned into sieves. In the blink of an eye, over 1,000 beasts were killed. Many exotic beasts were slaughtered to the point of despair. They knelt on the ground, kowtowing and begging for mercy, wagging their tails. But Zhang Tian didn't even look at them. He let the flying swords kill them and let them fall to the ground screaming. Zhang Tian shook the dragon tendon, and dozens of corpses appeared on the corpse cloak, including the huge head of the winged dragon. Jiang Tian put his arm around Huang Linger's waist, glared at Saint Joan of Arc and continued to fly in the direction of the Holy Church unhurriedly. Jiang Tian flew 10 kilometers away. The entire Manku Mountain was silent. Tens of thousands of exotic beasts were all killed. In the forest, flames soared to the sky and blood surged. Corpses were piled up like mountains, broken limbs were everywhere and blood flowed like a stream. It was like Azura hell. The imprisoned humans on Earth were released by Jiang Tian by breaking the cage with his flying swords. They stood in the forest in confusion, and then kowtowed in the direction where Jiang Tian left, crying. At this time Saint Joan of Arc, who was shocked to the point of numbness, came back to her senses and couldn't help but be horrified. Jiang Tian's strength was too shocking. Tens of thousands of flying swords were as heavy as a mountain, but Jiang Tian could control them as if they were his arms. This showed that Jiang Tian's spiritual power could be divided into tens of thousands of strands, which was extremely powerful. This was too amazing. She had never heard of this before. Perhaps only the immortals in the ancient times of Wuxia had such power. Moreover, Jiang Tian's strong performance was too frightening. Even if the winged dragon king begged for mercy, even if the exotic beasts wanted to join him, he didn't show any mercy. Jiang Tian was clearly declaring to everyone that they could either retreat or die. As long as they dared to come out and fight, they would die without a doubt. Sure enough, there was almost no decent resistance. However, hundreds of foreign races appeared in the sky. There were giants, elves, Holy Light clan members and worshippers. They flew in the sky or stood on top of the mountain, looking at the big demon character above Jiang Tian's head. The look in their eyes was very complicated. There was unconcealable greed, reverence and deep fear. At this time, there were already hundreds of corpses on Jiang Tian's dragon tendon cloak, and they were basically powerhouses above the Foundation establishment stage. Especially the huge head of the pterosaur king that was dripping with blood like a small mountain, it was even more visually impactful and shocking. Wherever Jiang Tian passed, these powerhouses all avoided him. These people didn't intend to fight at all. They were too afraid of Jiang Tian. They just wanted to see what kind of human dared to destroy the holy sea of earth, challenge the authority of the Holy Church of Heaven, and be cursed by the evil hunting order. There were even some giants and elves who, under the leadership of a few powerhouses, had looks of reverence as they followed behind Jiang Tian in silence. Moreover, the members of these two races were increasing and soon there were more than 1,000 people. Jiang Tian asked curiously, "Saint Joan, why are they following me?" This small world was originally a tripartite balance of power between the giants, the elves and the holy clans of light. Joan of Arc explained, but later a powerhouse of the holy clans of light appeared and suppressed the giants and the elves. These two races are now working for the holy clans of light like slaves. They should want to help you. There's class warfare everywhere. Jiang Tian smiled faintly. However, it was not that he didn't kill anyone, nor did he care about anyone. With his current situation, he didn't need the help of these two races at all. Of course, if they were willing to kill the holy clans of light, Jiang Tian wouldn't mind. Soon he passed through the Mangu mountain range that was hundreds of miles long and arrived at the foot of the first holy mountain. This mountain was called Night Guardian Mountain, located at the outermost edge and bottom of many holy mountains. It was where many Sin Angels lived. This place already belonged to the holy clans of light. Sin Angels were also called fallen angels. Their leader was a six-winged high-level angel who once served the true god, Lu Huaxi. He was once deeply trusted and dazzling. He had the beauty and courage to surpass other angels, but his heart was blinded by evil. He wanted to replace God and sit on the throne of the holy clans. He saw humans suffer, but God didn't save them. Because he turned into an angry fallen angel, he changed his name to Lu Shihua and once became an enemy of the holy clans. Later he was suppressed by the holy clans. He once guarded the hell of the Mangu mountain, gnawing on the sinners in the ice and fire, and became the leader of the Mangu mountain. Later he entered the outermost holy mountain to defend against the invasion of the enemy and the night. All of a sudden, this holy mountain was filled with black fog, murderous intent, and there was also an evil but powerful light gushing out. Then the black fog faded and an angel with 6 wings appeared. Each wing was 100 meters long, like a huge black cloud across the sky. There were more than 10,000 fallen angels behind him, and most of them were 3-winged or 4-winged angels. However, unlike other angels, their wings were black, like black jade and black iron. They were very condensed, but there were also wisps of pure white. This was because they were all sin angels who had once followed Lu Shihua and fought against the true God and the holy clans. They had been cursed by God and became like this. They were the angel of anger, the angel of destruction, the angel of revenge, and the angel of death. They were full of negative and cruel emotions and so on. The six-winged angel in the lead was Lu Shihua. He had a handsome face, but there was a trace of evil and cruel temperament. His huge wings were like pieces of dark clouds that covered the sky. His pair of demonic eyes were like dead ashes. There was no difference between the eyeballs and the whites of his eyes. His whole body was gray and it was extremely frightening. The weapon in his hand was not a cross but a scythe of the Grim Reaper. It seemed to be polished in hell, exuding a torrential aura of death. It was so sharp that it seemed to be able to cut through the sky. He raised his head and greedily looked at the evil character above Jiang Tian's head. He looked a little excited and fanatical. Ever since he was cursed by the holy clans, his magic power had been sealed. If he could kill Jiang Tian this time and obtain the blessings of the true God, he could be purified and his strength and lifespan would be greatly increased. Seeing the dense crowd of fallen angels, Huang Linger looked a little worried. Saint Jean's beautiful face turned pale and she was a little scared. Once they went crazy, they would even kill her. Once this battle broke out, she was afraid that she would also be affected. After all, Lu Shihua was too powerful. He had fought against the Holy Emperor. Although he did not succeed, he still escaped unscathed. Even if he failed to kill the Holy Emperor, he was still a strong person in the eyes of the Holy Emperor. He was not willing to kill him but used him. She looked at Jiang Tian. She saw that Jiang Tian's face was still calm, but the coldness in his eyes was getting heavier and heavier. In the end, Jiang Tian slowly stopped flying and a cruel smile appeared on his face. His cold eyes glanced at the fallen angels, and his voice was like the cold wind of a 10,000-year-old glacier. After 3 breaths, those who still block my path will die. Chapter 1033. When Huang Linger saw those evil fallen angels, a trace of fear appeared on her pretty face. This thing was neither human nor ghost. It was filled with an evil aura. It was even more terrifying than the winged dragon king. After saying that, Jiang Tian pushed Huang Linger behind him to protect her. He slowly closed his eyes as if he had fallen asleep. Saint Joan of Arc immediately retreated, fearing that she would be implicated. But she didn't dare to run too far. She didn't know if Jiang Tian would kill her. After all, she didn't have Jiang Tian's permission. Lu Shihua's silver hair fluttered in the wind, and a disdainful smile appeared on his lips. His eyes were cruel, but he didn't say a word. He just made a hand gesture. Suddenly, the wind howled and waves rushed to the sky. The battle cries were earth-shattering. A terrifying aura of death filled every corner of the world. It was as if 3,000 miles of ice had been frozen. People heard a burst of ghostly wails as if the gates of hell had been opened. Suddenly, tens of thousands of fallen angels flapped their wings and flew to their positions. They surrounded Jiang Tian like an inescapable net. 3 breaths later, Saint Joan of Arc came to the sky a few kilometers away from the encirclement and observed. Tens of thousands of fallen angels with different weapons occupied an area of a few kilometers. They surrounded Jiang Tian from all directions like a black ball of fallen angels. Jiang Tian was in the center of the ball. There were so many fallen angels, and the crowd was so dense that she couldn't see Jiang Tian's shadow from her position. Jiang Tian held Huang Linger's waist. Suddenly he opened his eyes, and the purple lightning rings in the depths of his pupils kept shrinking and expanding. He also didn't say a word and directly attacked. Clang! The purple lightning eyes erupted, and 2 bolts of purple lightning about 100 meters long and as thick as a bucket instantly blasted a hole in the sinful angel. Hundreds of angels were electrocuted into ashes by this attack. They died in an instant, their bodies and souls annihilated together. Jiang Tian had returned after 10,000 years of cultivation. He had lived 2 lives and his combat experience was as rich as an encyclopedia. These sinful angels used to kill people like flies. Their hands were stained with blood and were extremely filthy. They were also cursed by the saint's spell and were filled with negative emotions. They were very evil and dark and they used negative spiritual energy to kill people. However, they were also most afraid of lightning-type magic. It could be said that the purple lightning eye was their nemesis. Zhang Tian unleashed his purple lightning eye god art and killed 600 fallen angels in one strike. The other sinful angels were shocked. They had never imagined that Zhang Tian would actually be so powerful. He was clearly a devil, yet he was able to use a lightning attribute cultivation method. But Zhang Tian was even scarier. Zhang Tian's lightning eyes flashed again as he condensed the lightning into a blade. Suddenly, a 500-meter-long purple lightning blade appeared in his hand. The lightning saber looked wild and tyrannical. Occasionally, it flickered with electricity as it swept out like the autumn wind sweeping away fallen leaves. Clang! The spherical encirclement formed by the sinful angels was instantly shattered, and countless sinful angels were killed. Use your spiritual energy to attack. Lu Huaxi spoke for the first time and immediately attacked Zhang Tian. He raised the Grim Reaper scythe and swung it down. This Grim Reaper scythe was created by the Sage Emperor. At that time, Lu Huaxi had already become the owner of the 10th level of the Sacred Mountain, and the Sage Emperor had specially created this Dharma artifact for him. Moreover, this scythe was strengthened by the elders of the Senate and had been refined by Lu Huaxi for thousands of years. Its spiritual energy had reached an unimaginable level. The moment the Grim Reaper scythe appeared, the color of heaven and earth changed. A blood-stained stone door appeared and then opened. It was as if the Grim Reaper was about to walk out of the underworld and reap Zhang Tian's life. Countless corpses flowed out of the stone door like a river. Headless angels and ghosts howled ferociously. Within a 3-kilometer radius, extreme despair, pain, sorrow, resentment, helplessness, desperation and gloominess were instantly filled. The cries of ghosts and howls of wolves soared into the sky. It was extremely miserable, as if the gates of hell had been opened. This was a spiritual energy attack, but it could interfere with one's mind and make one unable to resist the corresponding feelings. It was tangible but intangible and impossible to guard against. There was no greater sorrow than a dead heart. This blow made one's heart die. Even if she was several kilometers away, Saint Joan of Arc was affected and interfered with. Her mind was filled with scenes of despair that made him sad. Dark childhood memories, wars, massacres, the betrayal of comrades, the departure of loved ones, the depravity and ignorance of the world, flashed in front of her eyes. Perhaps if I die, everything will be over. Tears flowed down her face as she sobbed. The unbearable pain in her soul made her have the urge to die. Although she knew that this was because her mind was interfered with by Lu Huaxi, she still couldn't control herself from pulling out the short knife at her waist and cutting her white and tender neck. On the periphery, many giants, elves and onlookers had begun to commit suicide. Their corpses fell like rain. Demon, go to hell. In the name of the Grim Reaper, I will reap your despicable life. Lu Huaxi silently recited an obscure incantation, and the Grim Reaper scythe continued to slash down. He was determined to kill this demon. You want to compete with me in spiritual attacks? You are courting death. Zhang Tian sneered. Suddenly, the middle finger of his right hand pointed at his forehead, and the Soul Devourer erupted. Die. Black Soul Devourers formed a black gelatinous death curse, which swayed out from Zhang Tian's golden sea of consciousness. After a few flashes they disappeared. Clang. The gate of hell suddenly collapsed. Countless ghosts and corpses either collapsed or were devoured by the Soul Devourer's divine sense. A look of horror appeared on Lu Huaxi's face. He flapped his huge wings quickly and retreated like a meteor. At the same time he waved the Grim Reaper scythe and used many secret techniques to block Zhang Tian's Soul Devourer. But it was useless. He looked up to the sky and howled miserably. The Soul Devourer's divine sense had already invaded his sea of consciousness. This was the first time Zhang Tian used the Soul Devourer death curse. The Soul Devourer was originally very powerful. Zhang Tian didn't need to use secret techniques at all. He could easily kill people with his divine sense. However, Zhang Tian had to add fuel to the fire when he encountered a fallen angel who defeated him with spiritual attacks. The Soul Devourer death curse was activated. In an instant the situation took a turn for the worse. The battlefield became a one-sided massacre. Killing a fallen angel was as easy as killing an ant. The aura of death enveloped an area of 3 kilometers. There were no sparks, no loud noises and no dazzling moves. Everything was very calm. However, there were fallen angels screaming miserably. Their souls died, their bodies stiffened, and they died instantly. Countless corpses fell from the sky like rain. In just a few breaths, the corpses of fallen angels piled up on the ground. The fallen angels who weren't affected by the soul-devourer death curse were so frightened that their souls almost left their bodies. They flapped their black wings and fled in all directions like arrows. They were so scared that their souls were about to be destroyed. Their bodies were trembling. After the fallen angels failed in their rebellion and were cursed by the deities, their holy light, holy spells and power were sealed. They started to focus on spiritual power. They used anger, despair, grief, fear, and other emotions to destroy the opponent's soul and kill people. After a long period of evolution, their spiritual killing ability became stronger and stronger. In this aspect, they even surpassed golden elixir powerhouses. However, at this moment, under Zhang Tian's soul devourer, they were as weak as babies. They couldn't withstand a single blow. However, these fleeing fallen angels didn't get far before their heads exploded under the black soul devourer's flash. Their souls exploded and they fell to the ground and died miserably. Zhang Tian's eyes were cold and merciless. His expression didn't change at all. The soul devourer's consciousness kept exploding, silently and coldly slaughtering. Wherever the soul devourer death curse was activated, it was like crushing ants. All the fallen angels without exception had their heads explode or died with blood flowing out of their orifices. Shrill screams shook the heavens and the earth. The Night Guardian Mountain, which was also the 10th sacred mountain, was like countless ferocious ghosts howling in hell. Some fallen angels were so frightened that they knelt in the air and begged Zhang Tian for mercy. However, Zhang Tian turned a deaf ear to their pleas. The dragon tendons of the long corpse cloak stretched out and wrapped around the corpses that had fallen to the ground. In the blink of an eye, there were more than 1,000 corpses on Zhang Tian's corpse cloak. Basically, they were all four-winged fallen angels. Their cultivation was equivalent to the middle foundation establishment stage. Those whose cultivation levels were too low didn't have a deterrent effect and weren't qualified to wear the cloak. Zhang Tian continued his massacre. At this moment, 10,000 flying swords also burst out. Chapter 1034. Tens of thousands of flying swords swept out, and wherever they passed there was a miserable howl. Blood gushed out like spring water and souls struggled and cried. However, Zhang Tian was too lazy to kill those low-level angels, so he only picked the mid-level and high-level ones. These angels were basically equivalent to the mid-late stage of the foundation establishment stage, and they were even more intimidating when tied to the cloak. Moreover, the demon character above Zhang Tian's head became more and more intense as Zhang Tian killed, and a larger scale of red light burst out. It was as if it was carved out of a giant red agate, illuminating 10 miles. It was as if there was a substantial blood chi rolling around, extremely terrifying. At this moment, Lu Huaxi's soul was being gnawed by the soul devourer. He threw away his sickle and fell to the ground, holding his head in pain and struggling, screaming miserably. At this time, the greed and desire in his heart had turned into deep fear. Bean-sized cold sweat flowed down his face, and he was so frightened that his soul trembled. He had once challenged the Saint Emperor. The Saint Emperor was the master of the Holy Church, the king of this world of heaven. In this place his authority was supreme. He ruled 10 holy mountains, suppressed hundreds of millions of people, and his words were the law. His strength was unparalleled and his cultivation was unfathomable. It was said that he had experienced the twilight of the gods and dominated this world for thousands of years. No challenger was a match for him. However, even when he faced the Saint Emperor, he was not as afraid as he was now. He felt that Zhang Tian was even comparable to the legendary ancient gods. Maybe he could really overturn the Holy Church. Thinking of this, his mind suddenly became clear. He immediately knelt on the ground and shouted, "True God, spare me, true God of the beginning, spare me." Lu Huaxi already knows his mistake. "I want to chase after you. In the Middle Ages of the Earth world, I once rebelled against the Holy Church and killed several popes in the mortal world because I felt that they were too cruel to human beings. I have always been dissatisfied with the Saint Emperor, but later I was cursed by them and I had no choice but to kill you." At this time Saint Joan was dumbfounded. She looked at Zhang Tian in disbelief as if she had seen a demon god. Lu Huaxi was arrogant and unyielding, and even the current sage emperor would not submit to him. But at this moment, Zhang Tian had forced him to kneel and submit. Lu Huaxi's heart trembled violently when he saw Jiang Tian's ice-cold expression and how the soul devourer in his mind had become even more frenzied. Senior, Lu Huaxi is willing to be your servant and disciple. From now on you will be like my father. Master, please accept me. This person had once gone to the lower realm and destroyed the Holy See. He had even traveled to Wuxia. He knew that Wuxia had the habit of respecting teachers, so he directly played this favor card. Then he looked at Huang Linger, kowtowed and begged, "You're so beautiful, you must be Master's wife. Master's wife, please persuade Master to accept me." Huang Linger was both shy and happy. She stole a glance at Jiang Tian. Seeing Jiang Tian's ice-cold expression, she could not help but sigh inwardly. She lowered her head and did not say anything. Jiang Tian looked at Lu Huaxi coldly and did not say anything. Lu Huaxi was anxious. He hurriedly tapped between his eyebrows, and a drop of soul blood floated out from his forehead. As this drop of soul blood flew out, Lu Huaxi's expression immediately became dispirited. The power and bloodline in his body fluctuated violently, and his cultivation showed signs of dropping. This soul blood was connected to his life. Once anyone controlled it, it was equivalent to controlling his life. Moreover, if the person who controlled the soul blood died, he would die with him. Therefore he had to follow Jiang Tian until his death. He could never betray him. Once he gave up his soul blood, his cultivation and combat strength would be greatly affected. The higher his cultivation, the greater the loss. Jiang Tian knew the characteristics of the radiant saints like the back of his hand. His expression did not change. With a wave of his right hand, the soul blood fell into his palm. Then Jiang Tian tapped the little golden lake between his eyebrows. Lu Huaxi's soul blood was immediately enveloped by Jiang Tian's small soul devourer. As soon as the soul devourer moved, Lu Huaxi would immediately die. There was no possibility of escape. Something happened to Jiang Tian, Lu Huaxi could only die. This was more useful than a soul contract because a soul contract could be modified and remade. However, this kind of enslavement was lifelong. At this moment, Lu Huaxi was also very sad. He had been enslaved by the sanctuary before and now by Jiang Tian. Was he destined to be a slave for the rest of his life? However, he had no other choice. He was extremely helpless and regretful. Jiang Tian was a demon among demons. He killed mercilessly and there was no room for negotiation. If he had known this would happen, he would have hidden in the 10th sacred mountain and watched the show. He would never have provoked this demon even if he was beaten to death. After all, whether Jiang Tian or the Saint King died, he would be very happy. However, he soon accepted the reality. He stood behind Jiang Tian, picked up the death god's scythe and waved it in the air. "From now on, I declare a revolution on the 10th sacred mountain. Fallen angels, giants and elves who can still fight, let's unite around Jiang Taichu, who is the core of the anti-thief army. If gods stand in our way, kill gods. If saints stand in our way, kill saints. If saints stand in our way, kill saints. If saints stands in our way, kill saints. Kill. Kill the divine ancestor, kill the Saint King. Destroy the sanctuary. May true God Jiang live a long and boundless life." Goddess Huang Linger and true God Jiang got married a long time ago. Her power is profound and she will have many children and live a long life. Many fallen angels, giants and ordinary human overlords waved their fists and weapons as they shouted. More people flew over from afar and joined the battle. There were also ordinary humans who had been rescued from the Mango Mountain. In the blink of an eye, tens of thousands of people had gathered. Jiang Tian's face was still as water and he didn't say anything. However, after a moment of embarrassment and shyness, Huang Linger looked at the scene of thousands of people worshipping her, and her heart was in turmoil. She used to be a weak and innocent girl. After following Jiang Tian, she forced herself to cultivate, kill and fight. In the middle of the night, she often had insomnia or was awakened by nightmares. She was afraid that she would go too far or not do enough. Perhaps she would fail Jiang Tian's trust, or perhaps she would kill the wrong person. At this moment, all the doubts in her heart were cleared. Not only did she live up to Jiang Tian's trust, but she also lived up to the people who were deceived by the heavenly state and oppressed by the Holy See. She lived up to the human earthlings who were treated as food in the Mango Mountain. Thinking of this, the flames of passion surged in her heart. She didn't quickly express her modesty with words like before when she was worshipped by her subordinates. Instead, she straightened her slender waist and looked at the layers of holy mountains that were gradually growing taller. Thinking of the holy clan of light who had yet to be executed, not only did she want to kill them one by one, but she also wanted to change this place into a world that belonged to Zhang Tian. When their cheers gradually stopped, Zhang Tian looked up coldly at the ninth holy mountain and said coldly, "Continue to advance." Under Zhang Tian's leadership, the fallen angels, elves, giants and mortals, led by Lu Huaxi, attacked the ninth holy mountain. Kikik, a group of low-level angels, scum, get lost. Ask the holy emperor, that old bastard, to come out and face his death. I want to return the slap he gave me back then. Lu Huaxi rode on a black unicorn and took the lead, waving his scythe, laughing strangely and roaring loudly. This person's character was actually not bad, but with his black wings, fluttering silver hair and gray pupils, he always gave people the evil feeling of a peerless villain. He was born to be a villain. Wherever they passed by, many low-level angels, all kinds of strange beasts and civilians all retreated, not daring to face them head-on. Zhang Tian only took a few minutes to flatten the 10th holy mountain and intimidate Lu Huaxi. This was too terrifying. Chapter 1035. What he used just now is an extremely rare divine soul devouring, but he doesn't have a devil body. He must have snatched it from an ancient devil god. During the march, Lu Huaxi peeked at Zhang Tian from time to time, trying to figure out what was going on. The more he thought about it, the more scared he became. Saint Joan of Arc had an inexplicable feeling in her heart. She never thought that a human from Earth could be so powerful. He seemed to be able to turn heaven upside down and no one dared to stop him. Could he really overturn the Holy Church? She thought about it, but in the end she shook her head. It was impossible. Legend had it that the Holy Lord of each holy mountain was extremely powerful, and the Holy Church had ancient holy knights, elders and holy emperors. No matter how strong Zhang Tian was, he was still too far away. The ninth holy mountain has a seraph guarding it. In addition, there are 2 level 8 angels. Lu Huaxi flew to Zhang Tian's side and reported softly. Angels were actually divided into 9 levels, roughly corresponding to the 9 levels of the Foundation establishment stage. The most powerful was the seraph, equivalent to the 9th level of the Foundation establishment stage. Below it there were wisdom angels and throne angels, corresponding to the 7th and 8th levels. These angels were already extraordinary and belonged to the upper level of angels. Mid-level angels, equivalent to the middle level of the Foundation establishment stage, belonged to the level of the Holy Sun. There were master angels, strength angels and might angels. Low-level angels, equivalent to the early level of the Foundation establishment stage, were composed of authoritative angels, archangels and the lowest ordinary angels. He explained a lot, including the defense of the 9 holy mountains, the powerhouses guarding it, the magic treasures, magical powers and so on. However, Zhang Tian didn't care about these divisions and arrangements. He only adhered to one principle: whoever blocked him would die. The width of the 10th holy mountain was only about 300 miles. With Lu Huaxi, who knew the way, leading the way, they took a shortcut and arrived in less than an hour. This was because some people in the army were slower and encountered some sporadic resistance. If Zhang Tian and Huang Linger directly flew through the air, the time would be even shorter. Finally, they arrived at the foot of the 9th holy mountain. 100 or so kilometers away from Zhang Tian, in the depths of the holy mountain, above a palace hidden by countless divine trees, a group of handsome 6-winged angels appeared in the dazzling holy light. They all stared at Zhang Tian in fear and did not say a word. These were all superior angels with 3 pairs of beautiful wings on their backs. Holy light enveloped their bodies in halos. There were also some very old angels among them whose lifespans were unknown. They usually focused on absorbing holy light and cultivating, so they were extremely powerful. Even the strong ones in the sacred hall had to be courteous to them. If it weren't for the fact that Zhang Tian had destroyed the Holy See, killed his way into the kingdom of heaven, and issued a kill order, they wouldn't have shown up and made a move. We have to hurry. The leader of the group was a blazing angel. He was the master of the sacred mountain and was known as the Sacred Master. 9 divine halos circled around him, resonating with the halos in his dantian, representing his cultivation level as a 9th level angel. His face was very handsome and his skin was translucent, as if it was carved out of jade. However, his eyes were shining brightly as he said coldly, "Kong Techu's killing along the way may alarm the strong ones in the sacred hall. When that time comes, we won't be able to get anything. Sacred Master, I think we still have to be careful. I've read the information about Kong Teichu in the mortal world. It seems that he's only at the 3rd level of the Foundation Establishment level, which is the divine Immortal of the East. Next to him, a young angel of wisdom, surrounded by 7 holy lights and many ancient books floating around him, said with a solemn expression. But why is he so powerful? Even the Hell-Winged Dragon King was killed by him. Even Lu Huaxi was willing to be his disciple. The Manga Mountain and the 10th Sacred Mountain were crushed. Even if we do something, I'm afraid we won't be able to get anything. It's said that he has 3 doppelgangers. A golden armored man, a world tree that spits out stars and moonlight, and a green dragon that spits out black water. They're all very magical. I'm afraid only the golden core or even the nascent soul can make so many doppelgangers. So far, tens of thousands of people from the heavenly state have died in his hands. He had collected a lot of information. It was said that Kong Teichu's divine soul could destroy everything, and there were tens of thousands of flying swords. He couldn't help but be afraid. He shook his head and sighed. Even if we kill Kong Teichu and complete the mission of the hunting order, how many blessings will we get? Can they help us form light crystals? The so-called light crystals were actually the special golden cores of the Holy Light clan. From his point of view, it was understandable that he didn't want to fight. He was only at the 7th level of the Foundation Establishment level. Even if he got the blessings and absorbed the holy light and blessings in the hunting order, he would still be a distance away from forming light crystals. The other angels around were silent. Their faces were solemn as if they were facing a great enemy. However, the seraph's eyes flashed with a hint of fanaticism. He said coldly, "If we don't do anything, the Holy Church may not be satisfied. If the Holy Emperor blames us, neither you nor I can bear it." Beside him there was a dignified throne angel with 8 halos around him. There was a throne of light floating beneath his feet, but he frowned and said indignantly, "Is the dignity of the heavenly state just going to be trampled on by Kong Teichu? He was just an ant from the filthy world of earth. Could it be that we're really afraid?" This seraph had great authority, so his temper was very explosive. He roared emotionally. "If we, the 9th Holy Mountain, don't do anything and let Kong Teichu pass through without any obstacles, then we'll be the laughing stock of the Holy Mountains." I agree with the seraph's words. The seraph looked at him appreciatively, then glanced at the Wisdom Angel. "Wisdom Angel, you've forgotten something. The bounty order above his head is no longer as simple as it used to be. Kong Teichu has already killed tens of thousands of people. The light and cultivation of the dead have been restrained by the bounty order. Once we complete the mission, these light and souls will become our nourishment. This bounty order is no longer an ordinary one. The benefits are equivalent to 100 bounty orders. As long as we kill Kong Teichu, I believe that the blessings and holy light that everyone receives will be able to form light crystals. This way we can ascend to the Holy Church and extend our lifespans. I plan to do it. In the heavenly state, angels, even the strongest seraph, were not considered gods. They still belonged to the Holy Clan of Light. Only by forming light crystals could they live in the Holy Church and enjoy the most faith and holy light, strengthen their bodies and extend their lifespans. The angels looked at the huge demon character above Jiang Tian's head from afar. It had already expanded to 1,000 meters in radius. They understood. For a moment, their eyes were filled with excitement, and their hearts were also restless. At this moment, a seraph with a face full of wrinkles stepped forward. He sighed deeply and smiled bitterly. "My lifespan is almost up. If I can't enter the Holy Church within 10 years, if I can't bathe in the holy light and faith at a close distance, so, no matter how dangerous it is, I have to give it a try." He was indeed very old. Although his aura was strong, his light feathers had already cracked and fallen off. Some parts of his wings even revealed bare flesh. He had also lost a lot of hair. The halo and scripture around him were also very dim. After he finished speaking, he moved. Stepping on a scripture, he shot toward Jiang Tian like lightning. Behind him, the young seraph also flapped his light feathers and turned into a long rainbow that pierced toward Jiang Tian. The remaining angels, including hundreds of upper angels and the fallen angels who were far more powerful than Lu Huaxi, all followed. Some watched silently, but they were also rubbing their palms. If Jiang Tian fell into a disadvantageous position in the slightest, they would swarm forward and chop Zhang Tian into pieces. The powerhouses of the ninth holy mountain came very quickly. In the blink of an eye, the first batch, more than 100 upper angels, surrounded Zhang Tian. However, they still kept a certain distance, about 3 kilometers, and looked at Zhang Tian. There were even some old angels who had only heard of their names but had never seen them before. Their wolf-like eyes were shining with greed. They stared at the huge demon character above Zhang Tian's head, and then looked at Zhang Tian. This made Saint Joan of Arc terrified. Even Lu Huaxi's heart was beating wildly, secretly anxious. The blood-red character above Zhang Tian's head was getting bigger and bigger, which alarmed many old monsters and living fossils. If this continued, maybe the higher-ups of the Holy Mountain, or even the Holy Church and the Senate would directly take action. It was not impossible for the elders to come, or even the divine ancestor to lead the divine knights to take action. Lu Huaxi wiped the sweat on his forehead and looked at Zhang Tian anxiously. Why hasn't this demon taken action yet? If it were him, he would have already killed everyone. Only by suppressing and intimidating with more cruel and bloody means could he scare them away. Otherwise, if more and more angels gathered, how could he resist? Chapter 1036. There were more and more angels around. After the first wave of overlords, including the Seraph and the Old Wisdom Angel, arrived, the Young Wisdom Angel and the Throne Angel led many high-level angels to the foot of the ninth sacred mountain, forming the second echelon. There were also thousands of other angels. They all came out of the palace and moved dozens of kilometers downward, forming the third echelon. Huang Linger couldn't help but feel nervous. She grabbed Zhang Tian's hand with cold sweat. She glanced at Zhang Tian. Zhang Tian's face was still calm. She suddenly became bolder and puffed out her chest. She felt that as long as Zhang Tian was here, she wouldn't have to be afraid even if the world was turned upside down. At this time, the Seraph and the Old Wisdom Angel of the 8th Sacred Mountain led about 300 high-level angels and approached Zhang Tian silently. Zhang Tian turned around and looked at the thousands of bodies on his cloak. There were so many of them that he almost didn't have enough dragon tendons. He shook his head and smiled bitterly. Haven't I killed enough people? Do you think I'm kind and gentle? The Seraph suddenly said coldly. Kong Techu, you destroyed the Holy Sea on earth, killed people in heaven and destroyed the 10th sacred mountain. You can't be forgiven. Kill yourself to wash away your sins. Otherwise, I'll lead the angel army to the lower realm and slaughter your family and the heavenly clear sect to the last man. The threat of the blazing angel to ordinary people could be said to be murderous. The threat was very effective and many people had to submit to it. Even Huang Linger's face turned pale. But unfortunately, he was facing Zhang Tian at this moment and he had touched Zhang Tian's reverse scale. Haha, I wanted to take a break and kill a few overlords to intimidate you. Zhang Tian flicked his fingers and said with a half-smile. It seems that I should kill all of you, then kill my way to the Saint Hall and kill all the true gods and true saints in the Saint Hall. Naturally, no one will dare to seek revenge on me. There was dead silence. No one had expected Kong Techu from the Earth world to be so arrogant. Fine, Kong Techu, I will take your life and send you to hell to protect the supreme dignity of the kingdom of heaven. The blazing angel roared angrily. His 9 divine halos suddenly shone brightly. Pairs of vertical pupils instantly opened on his forehead, and endless holy light gushed out from them. The vast holy light formed a dazzling holy sword that tore through the void, illuminating the mountains and rivers as it swept toward Zhang Tian. Kong Techu, repent. I will use the endless holy flames to cleanse your sinful soul. Next to him, the old angel of wisdom chanted an incantation. The scripture under his feet suddenly opened up and the pages automatically flipped. Immediately, symbols and characters flew out one after another. They were all condensed from holy light and were as heavy as metal. They flickered with luster and possessed endless divine power. Wherever the scripture passed, the mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. The peaks of the mountain peaks were flattened or blasted apart. He had spent hundreds of years gathering the holy light and using the incantation to refine it into substance. His vast Dharma power was unstoppable. In the blink of an eye, the symbols and characters gathered to form scriptures that swept across the sky like divine chains, as if they were going to bind and suppress Zhang Tian and destroy his divine soul. How dare you provoke me with your little power? You're too inexperienced. Zhang Tian coldly snorted and stomped his right foot in the air. Clang. 100-foot mountain under his feet completely collapsed as if it had been shot by a bunch of missiles. The earth shook and the mountains shook. In the sky, with Zhang Tian as the center, endless true essence spread in all directions. Although Zhang Tian's cultivation had been suppressed to the early stage of foundation establishment, in fact his true essence was dense and vast, comparable to that of a golden core overlord. These angels were foundation establishment overlords. In terms of cultivation they were already slightly inferior to Zhang Tian, not to mention divine powers and secret arts. Endless true essence swept out like a nuclear explosion. Under the bombardment of true essence, the scriptures shining with holy light, the incantations, and the holy swords that swept across the sky were all shattered in an instant. The scene in front of him shook violently. At this moment the seraph felt like a small boat in a huge wave that was thrown out uncontrollably. At the same time the violent true essence bombarded his body. His tough body that could withstand a volley of missiles was torn open, and many of his bones were broken. Even his internal organs were damaged. The seraph stabilized his body and landed several kilometers away in the second echelon. Pooh! He spat out blood and his mind was greatly shaken. He looked at Zhang Tian from afar with shock. As for the old seraph wisdom, it was even worse. The scriptures were instantly torn to pieces by the torrent of true essence. In an instant the halos of holy light shattered one by one. Under the violent pressure his fingers exploded, his arms exploded, his legs exploded, his chest exploded, and in the end even his head exploded, turning into a rain of flesh and broken bones that scattered all over the place. The other angels, giants and fairies were all dumbfounded. The entire 9th sacred mountain within 100 miles was dead silent. How is this possible? Seeing this scene, many angels on the 9th holy mountain were dumbfounded. The seraph Wisdom, a level 9 angel, was the guardian of this mountain. He had once received guidance from the Holy Emperor and the elders. His scorching holy light could cut through mountains and open the earth, but he was no match for Zhang Tian. The old seraph of wisdom had been shattered into pieces by Zhang Tian's stomp. At this moment, Zhang Tian had not even made a move. He had only stomped his foot, but it was already so destructive. You can actually injure me. I will not live under the same sky as you. The seraph Wisdom's face was full of disbelief. Then he was burning with rage. His fighting spirit was boiling and his face was ferocious. Being defeated by a mortal from Earth was a humiliation that he could not accept. If he did not kill Zhang Tian, this humiliation would follow him for the rest of his life. He would be looked down upon and mocked by other angels. The reason was simple. It was like a strong man being sent flying by a 3-year-old child. He had to get back at him. You actually didn't die, this really makes me feel defeated. Zhang Tian chuckled. Suddenly his body swayed and he disappeared from the spot. He's gone. He ran away. He did the right thing by running away. How can he be a match for the seraph? Many angels relaxed as they thought to themselves with lingering fear. However, the seraph Wisdom's face suddenly became fearful, as if he had seen a dark demon god. He saw Zhang Tian suddenly appear out of thin air less than half a meter in front of him like a ghost. His eyes were cold and he had a mocking smile on his face as he reached out with his hand. The seraph Wisdom's 3 pairs of wings flapped at the same time. In an instant he exploded with a speed 10 times the speed of sound. However, he did not have time to escape. Zhang Tian grabbed his throat. Let go of me. No matter how the seraph Wisdom used all kinds of holy techniques and secret techniques, light feathers shot out in all directions, and flames burned all over his body. The vertical eye on his forehead spewed out terrifying flames at Zhang Tian. However, he could not do anything to Zhang Tian. He could not even break free from Zhang Tian's delicate palm. Not far away, the throne angel and the young wisdom angel were stunned, as if they had seen a heavenly book. They stood there motionless like fools. How is this possible? Beside them, countless angels, giants and fairies exclaimed. Kong Teichu had grabbed the seraph Wisdom like an eagle grabbing a chick. Save me. The seraph Wisdom's neck was broken, but he was still alive. He screamed with all his might, hoping that the throne angel and his companions would save him. The young wisdom angel did not move at all. It was unknown if he was scared or if he could not react in time. He only reacted after a few seconds, but he retreated into the distance like a shooting star. Kong Teichu let go. He can talk. However, the throne angel moved. He quickly crossed the distance of several kilometers and closed in. His might was overwhelming. He roared angrily and shook his right hand. The huge throne under his feet flew up. It smashed toward Zhang Tian like a mountain, crushing the sky and shattering the mountains and rivers. It was as if it could destroy an aircraft carrier. Chapter 1037. Go to hell. With a flick of his finger, Zhang Tian shattered the throne, and the angel flew backward with blood spurting out of his mouth. While the angel was still flying backward, Zhang Tian had already punched into the blazing angel's chest. Then his palm turned into a claw, and he pulled out the beating heart and a palm-sized halo from his chest. The moment the halo left his body, the blazing angel's vitality dropped rapidly. His hair turned white, his teeth fell out, his skin became dark and dry, his muscles shriveled, and his waist instantly bent. He turned from a young man to an old man at the end of his life. God, please give me back my halo. I don't want to die. Spare me. I don't want my life's cultivation to go down the drain. The blazing angel reached out to Zhang Tian in despair and knelt down in front of Zhang Tian. His face was full of fear and tears as he begged pitifully. Haha, I'll spare you. How can I spare you? Your halo? Dream on. I'm going to use your halo to refine my fourth divine body. When the divine body is complete, I'll see who in this world can do anything to me. Zhang Tian's eyes were sharp and murderous, but he laughed wildly. He was so arrogant and domineering. Along with his crazy laughter, even the star chart in the sky seemed to dim and tremble in fear. This thing contains a large amount of fire energy and holy light. If I collect enough, it can also help me transform into a fire attribute physique. Zhang Tian threw the heart away, looked at the halo and nodded in satisfaction. I didn't expect you to be so good. You've actually surpassed the 9th level of the foundation establishment stage and reached the false core stage. The halo had a total of 9 layers. In the air there were sparkling and translucent rays of light intertwining. They had already become solid like a spider web. The halo was translucent and emitted a warm light like a precious jade. It looked very magical. This thing was the crystallization of his life's cultivation. It was a special type of false core that the Holy Clan of Light had nurtured. Once the spiderweb-like rays of light in the halo were completely filled, they would become light crystals, which was equivalent to a successful core formation. As Zhang Tian sacrificed the halo into his storage ring, the demon character above Zhang Tian's head also trembled. Like a whale sucking in water, it absorbed all of the blazing angel's essence blood. At this moment the blazing angel wailed in despair. His body, like a clay figurine that had been smashed, began to rapidly disintegrate. In the end they all turned into ashes and specks of light filling the air. Only a few bones remained landing on the ground. The death mantra is truly terrifying. If I am lucky enough to survive this time, no matter what, I will ask this demon to teach me. If I had such strength, who would dare to provoke me in the kingdom of heaven? At this moment, Lu Huaxi looked at Zhang Tian with a mixture of horror and reverence. He was no longer gloomy and unwilling to accept the fact that he had just revealed his soul blood. Instead he felt a deep desire and envy. The strong would be respected no matter where they went. Even in heavenly state there were still classes. And the strong would always occupy the top of the food chain. The weak would always be exploited, trampled, and humiliated. At this time, Saint Joan of Arc's mentality was almost the same as Lu Huaxi's. She thought that maybe this demon could really overturn the Holy Church. If she followed him loyally, she might get some benefits. However, if she wanted to get benefits from Zhang Tian, she was afraid that she would have to do something and kill the enemy bravely. Zhang Tian coldly glanced at Lu Huaxi and Saint Joan of Arc and said, "Haven't you seen enough? Go kill them for me." "Master, just watch." Lu Huaxi was in high spirits. With a flap of his black wings, he flew out and stopped an angel, laughing strangely. "Isn't this Archangel Gabriel? When you followed the Holy Church to suppress me, you were very active. We haven't seen each other for a long time. Today we can get intimate." At the same time his right hand shook and the death scythe swept out, slashing toward the angel. As for Saint Joan of Arc, her strength was only equivalent to the early stage of foundation establishment. However, she was not of the Holy Light clan, but a mortal who ascended to heaven, so she was closer to the giants and the elves. Soon she was elected as the leader by a group of giants, elves and mortals. She led a group of people to attack the angels. At this time Zhang Tian glanced at the Angel of Wisdom, the injured throne, and several other high-level angels who had retreated several kilometers away. These angels were the trump cards of the 9th Holy Mountain. Below the Lord of the Sacred Mountain, the blazing angels, they were the strongest. Noticing Zhang Tian looking at them, they suddenly shone brightly and took out their magic weapons, condensing holy light to defend themselves as if facing a great enemy. "If you don't want to die, get out." Zhang Tian's eyes were cold as he shouted. Among the high-level angels, the Angel of Wisdom showed a grateful look. He bowed deeply, put away his magic weapon and quickly left. The faces of the others were alternating between red and white. They seemed to be quite humiliated and unwilling, but they also retreated. On the other hand, the throne angel that was injured by Zhang Tian covered his broken chest and retreated while coldly saying, "What are you waiting for? Kong Teichu, don't be happy too early. The Holy Mountain will not let you go." At this time St. Jean Lu Huaxi and the others had already beaten the angels of the 9th Holy Mountain. Their battle cries were earth-shattering and piercing into the sky. Huang Linger, who was following closely behind Zhang Tian, saw this scene and thought to herself, "You said you're not strong enough, so why don't you just run away? What's the use of all this nonsense? You're just inviting death." Sure enough, before the throne finished speaking, Zhang Tian's face turned cold. The small golden lake on his forehead flashed, and suddenly the soul devourer erupted. The throne's body suddenly stiffened. His face was twisted in pain as he held his head. With a bang, rays of white light shot out from his 7 orifices like arrows, and then his head exploded. A halo stained with blood flew out from his chest and landed in Zhang Tian's hand. "Continue to kill. Those who don't retreat, kill them all." Zhang Tian sneered and threw the halo into the sky-devouring magic gourd. About 15 minutes later, almost all the angels of the 9th Holy Mountain were slaughtered. The remaining ones also retreated far away, not daring to stop Zhang Tian. Zhang Tian took out all the high-ranking angels' halos and calmly sacrificed them into the sky-devouring magic gourd. Then he looked at the high and mighty Holy Mountain with a firm and cold gaze and continued to move forward. At this time St. Jean Lu Huaxi and many elves, giants and mortals were already full of admiration for Zhang Tian. Especially Lu Huaxi, his eyes were bursting with fanatical worship. He admired Zhang Tian very much. Back then he was still young and ambitious. He thought that the Holy Mountain and the Holy Sea on earth were too decadent. He once gathered tens of thousands of angels to go against the Holy Mountain. He wanted to change heaven and earth, become the supreme leader of the Holy Clan of Light and become the Holy Emperor. But he was beaten to a pulp. His dreams were full, but reality was cruel. Since then he realized the power of the Holy Mountain and despaired. He didn't dare to resist anymore. Instead he became a night watcher, guarding the 10th Holy Mountain. And now Zhang Tian had accomplished something that he thought was absolutely impossible, so how could he not feel admiration and reverence? Follow the Taichu true God, fight to the Holy Mountain and kill the Holy Ancestor. Then we can call ourselves the Holy Ancestor. We can enjoy the holy light and blessings forever. Lu Huaxi was extremely excited. He raised the Grim Reaper's scythe and mounted the black unicorn. He let out a loud roar and flew out first, leading the group in the direction of the Saint Hall. At this time, there were tens of thousands of angels and Holy Clan of Light hanging on the cloak of Zhang Tian's corpse, exuding a murderous aura. Some souls hadn't died yet. They were struggling and howling miserably, bringing out gusts of chilly wind that stirred up the sky and earth within a 10-mile radius. The demonic character above Zhang Tian's head continued to expand after absorbing the blood essence and cultivation of thousands of angels. It was like a small mountain and it was filled with a bloody aura. Red clouds surged and a murderous aura soared into the sky. Could be seen clearly from hundreds of miles away. This was more intimidating than any words. Some people who wanted to kill Zhang Tian were scared out of their wits when they saw this scene. They retreated far away, afraid that they would be involved. The top powerhouses of the 8th, 7th and 6th Holy Mountains retreated to the peak, not daring to stop Zhang Tian. The powerhouses scattered and didn't fight against Zhang Tian at all. He plundered crazily and killed everyone he saw. Lu Huaxi was covered in blood, but he was smug. "Didn't you call yourselves the true gods of the Holy Clan? Why don't you dare to come out and fight? Trash. The Taichu true god's power is monstrous, shaking the world of heaven. The ants of the holy mountain can't withstand a single blow. What a coward. He was like a great demonic god holding his blade in front of him, roaring loudly, his voice shaking everything within 10 miles, madly praising Zhang Tian. Chapter 1038. Lu Huaxi used to be very arrogant and rebellious. He once fought against the Holy Lord and tried to overturn the kingdom of heaven and kill the Holy Church. He claimed to be a god and changed the world. However, after being suppressed by the Holy Church, he was no longer rebellious and knew how to flatter others. No, they're retreating so that they can attack better. I'm afraid they want to use the sun to kill us. However, Zhang Tian's expression was slightly serious as he looked at the artificial sun in the sky. As they got closer and closer, Zhang Tian could see clearly that the sun had a diameter of 5 to 6 kilometers. It was embedded in the star map in the dome like a scorching fireball, emitting endless light. The real sun could also be vaguely seen. Moreover, the artificial sun's light was even more dazzling than before. The blooming light was like a sharp arrow shooting towards the earth and mountains. Zhang Tian understood. This artificial sun was essentially a huge Dharma artifact. It collected the true fire and energy of the stars in the universe. Not only could it strengthen the release, but it could also be stored in the internal structure. He didn't know how long it had been, but Zhang Tian knew that the energy contained inside was enough to maintain the kingdom of heaven for thousands of years and cross the universe. Moreover, under the activation of a secret technique, it could also form an attack. One attack could surpass a nuclear weapon and be comparable to a large Kuelian. Moreover, it could be released tens of thousands of times. If such a huge Dharma artifact descended on Earth, it could probably destroy all the living things on Earth in a few hours. It would definitely be shocking. However, Zhang Tian was not afraid at all. In his previous life he had created many stars with his own hands and nurtured a world. The power of the powerhouse who created the stars was naturally extraordinary, but compared to his power it was far too weak. After destroying a wave of enemies, Zhang Tian was about to continue moving forward. Suddenly, the sky was filled with the fragrance of flowers and falling petals. Vines and branches hundreds of meters long emerged from the forest and waved in the air like tentacles. The branches waved and passed the sprites standing on them one by one. The next branch would catch them and pass them forward, and so on. The spirits seemed to have huge plant tentacles that were hundreds of meters long under their feet as they rushed towards Zhang Tian and the others. There were also some sprites riding giant butterflies, bees, and birds with wings that were dozens of meters long. These elves, regardless of whether they were male or female, were all very beautiful. Their faces were soft and their figures were tall and graceful. Their skin was white and they emitted a soft glow. The color of their hair was very light, almost white. Their eyes were clear and they gave off a gentle, kind, and warm feeling. They were very similar to humans, but their pointy ears stood up playfully, and their bodies emitted light, indicating that they were not ordinary humans. The elf chief is here. Little slut. Could it be that you want to rely on my master? Lu Huaxi looked at the female elf in the lead. His demonic and dead gray eyes did not ripple, but his heart was filled with intense passion and greed. The elven matriarch was tall and slender. She was wearing a gauze dress that was as thin as a cicada's wings. Her beautiful eyebrows and feet were bare. Her slender waist, snow-white skin, undulating peaks, and slender, straight legs were all vaguely visible. Her jade-like face was radiant and dazzling. This was not a metaphor. She really emitted a soft glow, unlike the dazzling light of the holy clan of light. It made her look more holy, beautiful, and soul-stirring. It made one's heart itch and restless just by looking at her. Immediately, the desire to profane and ravage her welled up. Zhang Tian's Daoist heart was firm. His heart was as still as water, and his face was as calm as an ancient well. The elf clan was a relatively small clan in the universe. They were very mystical and their mind power was strong. They were born with the ability to communicate with plants, birds, and fish. They could even tame exotic beasts. Logically speaking, this clan should have some achievements. If they cultivated mind power techniques, they would even be very powerful. However, this clan was addicted to love. They stood aloof from worldly affairs and did not think about making progress. Moreover, they were too docile and kind. Even if their country or city was destroyed, they did not know how to take revenge. As a result, their numbers in the universe became fewer and fewer. Elf Chief Meiji greets Master Kong Teichu. The female elf chief stepped on a huge flower that was constantly blooming in the air and came to Zhang Tian. Her gentle and affectionate eyes sized up Zhang Tian with affection. Two intoxicating red clouds appeared on her beautiful face, and she bowed down on the flower. Huang Linger, who already had a certain understanding of the elf clan, showed a hint of worry. She glanced at the beautiful female elf and then at Zhang Tian. "Get up. What business do you have with me?" Zhang Tian's face was as cold as ice. He stood with his hands behind his back and looked straight in the direction of the holy church. Huang Linger saw this and heaved a sigh of relief. Meiji stood up with a smile on her face, revealing her beautiful teeth. Her red lips parted slightly, and her ethereal voice sounded extremely pleasing to the ear. "Lord Jiang Taichu, please stop attacking the Saint Hall and leave this world." But Jiang Tian showed a slightly mocking expression and said coldly, "Are you here to negotiate with me on behalf of the Holy Church?" Jiang Tian was unstoppable, but he also learned about the general situation of the Kingdom of Heaven through Lu Huaxi, Saint Joan and the others. In this land the elf clan was superior to the ordinary people and the giant clan, but far inferior to the Holy Clan of Light. They were also slaves of the Holy Church. If she was oppressed by the Holy Church and challenged him, then Jiang Tian would not be polite and would exterminate her clan. "Meiji is just a weak elf. How can I be qualified to represent the Holy Church?" Meiji smiled self-deprecatingly, and a hint of sadness appeared in her beautiful eyes. She looked pitiful and extremely moving. "It's just that I'm here to remind Master Kong Taichu on behalf of myself and the elf clan. Master Taichu is very powerful on earth. He is the strongest person on earth, but the strength of the Kingdom of Heaven is not as simple as you think. His Excellency the Divine Emperor is very powerful. He is on par with the true immortals of the ancient Wuxia. He is only half a step away from forming his nascent soul. He can break through at any time in battle." She showed a deep worry. Moreover, the divine ancestor who has been sleeping for 10,000 years is even more powerful. He is the pioneer of this world. In the legend of Wuxia, the ancient god Hou-Yi, who has infinite strength and can shoot down the sun, died in his hands. "Don't worry, I, Kong Taichu, am not afraid of a mere divine emperor or divine ancestor." Jiang Tian looked at her for the first time and smiled to show his gratitude. No matter how much she doubted Jiang Tian's strength, at least her intention was good. She did not want Jiang Tian to die here. Seeing this, Meiji frowned her beautiful eyebrows. The other elves also shook their heads and sighed. They seemed to think that Jiang Tian was stupid. The elf clan was kind and docile. They had no rebellious spirit and were even afraid of death. As long as they could live, they would not fight and take risks. They could not understand what Jiang Tian was doing. "You are the strongest person on earth. The world is vast and you are free to roam. Isn't this enough to satisfy you? Isn't it good to be alive? Why do you want to die? But do you see that sun?" Meiji pondered for a while and finally raised her hand to point at the artificial sun. The people of the Saint Hall sacrificed their blood essence and dharma power to make the artificial sun explode to the limit. Can even break through this continent. Even a nascent soul-old monster like the divine ancestor can be killed with one blow. The masters of the several saint mountains retreated in order to sacrifice their blood essence and dharma power to kill you with one blow with the artificial sun. As soon as these words came out, Lu Huaxi, Saint Joan and the others suddenly felt a chill in their hearts. They did not have much confidence in Jiang Tian. Chapter 1039. The origin of the artificial sun was mysterious, but it was too powerful. Rumor had it that during the Age of Gods and the Age of Darkness, there were invasions from a higher civilization. The artificial sun had exploded a few times and even the nascent soul-level fiends were killed easily. Jiang Tian was indeed powerful, but how could they fight it head-on? "Don't worry. I have a way to deal with it." Jiang Tian chuckled and said confidently. "Sigh." Mickey heaved a sigh and was about to leave. At this moment an army of several thousand riders arrived from afar. They were all riding Qilin beasts, griffins, red ho-winged dragons and various other beasts. Their battle cries shook the heavens and surged with battle intent. Even the flowing clouds in the sky were broken. On top of all kinds of monsters, there were giant warriors riding on them. Each of them was at least 3 meters tall and some of them were even 5 meters tall. They were wearing leather waistcoats, revealing their bronze skin. Their hands and feet were thick and their muscles were thick. Their hair was disheveled and they had thick eyebrows and big eyes. They held giant stone sticks, stone hammers and stone knives in their hands and carried giant bows on their backs. They were primitive and uncivilized, giving people a wild and fierce feeling. They were too fierce. Some of the boys and girls, even underage teenagers, were more than 2 meters tall. Generally speaking, they were taller and purer than the giants who followed Zhou Xian before. If they came to Earth, they would be caught and taken to the laboratory to be dissected for research. It's the giants who betrayed us. Lu Huaxi was shocked and said coldly. The giants claimed that the heavenly world used to be theirs, but it was taken away by the divine ancestor. They refused to obey the sacred hall and a war broke out between the two sides. Later, they were defeated by the sacred hall and lived in the dark north. Why are they here? Get ready to fight. Lu Huaxi gave the order. Everyone was on guard and looked nervous. Dark qi came out of their bodies and they pulled out their swords. Although the giants couldn't control the sacred light sacred arts, they were strong and powerful. They were also good at shooting and fighting, so they were also a powerful force. Don't panic. I'm Yi, the leader of the giants. I'm here to meet Kong Techu. The leader of the group was a majestic dragon horse. An old man from the giant race cupped his fists and spoke in Wuxia language. It was just that it was a bit difficult to pronounce. This old man carried a huge pitch-black bow on his back. His appearance was simple and unadorned and he wore hemp clothes. He was as thin as a match and his hair was sparse. However, it could be seen that he had yellow skin and black pupils. Zhang Tian guessed that he was from ancient Wuxia. Zhang Tian scanned with his divine sense and found that the blood flowing in this person's body had a trace of the ancient sorcerer tribe's aura. He was as strong as a mountain and his body was strong. Although he didn't have any divine powers and wasn't as strong as an immortal body, he was still very strong. Could they be the descendants of Hou Yi? It was rumored that Hou Yi was one of the 12 shamans. Could these legends be true? In the blink of an eye, Zhang Tian's mind was filled with many thoughts. Don't be nervous. Zhang Tian took a few glances and understood something in his heart. His expression was calm as he revealed a faint smile. He raised his hand and took a step forward in the air to receive the attack. Grandpa, is this Kong Techu? He's too weak. How could he destroy the heavenly country? Beside the old man, a 17 or 18-year-old girl looked at Zhang Tian with suspicion and disdain. This girl was about 17 or 18 years old. She was 2 meters tall, but her height was relatively normal. She was tall and her face was beautiful. Her skin was crystal clear and she had a pair of big watery eyes. Xiaomang, don't be rude. Yi, the leader of the giant race, glared at his granddaughter and then looked at Zhang Tian in shock. Zhang Tian was too young, but his strength was so strong that he could defeat so many Saint Mountain experts. It was unbelievable. He walked up to Zhang Tian, bowed and cupped his fists. His attitude was very humble. Zhang Tian cupped his fists and returned the greeting. Yi quickly told Zhang Tian the purpose of his visit and told him a secret. Immortal Master Zhang, my race came from the untainted human world. We are the descendants of Hou Yi. This world originally belonged to us, but it was taken away by the holy race of light. The untainted human world? So, you didn't come from the twilight of the gods or the ancient earth during the battle of the deities. You came from an earlier era? Zhang Tian was shocked when he heard that. According to the records Zhang Tian had read, Hongmeng ancestor Shin Hongjun ordered his disciple Pangu to split the chaos and create the untainted world. After that, there were many eras. First, there were factions in the land of witchcraft. Eastern Emperor Tai controlled the ancient heavenly court, and the monster race took the dominant position. Pangu's primordial spirit turned into the 3 pure ones and created the untainted world. Pangu's body turned into the 12 ancestors of witches and gave birth to many great witches, including Hou Yi. Then the monster race and the witches fought a great war. Many ancestors of witches and the ancient heavenly court of Eastern Emperor Tai died, but they also broke the untainted human world and divided it into the starry sky, the ancient earth, the earth deity realm, and so on. Then on the ancient earth the 3 pure ones rose, the Chan sect and the Ren sect rose, and the remaining forces of the human race and the witches fought again on the ancient earth. Then there was the battle between the 3 pure ones and the investiture of the gods on the ancient earth, which had a great impact on the later generations. Before this, Zhang Tian thought that these were all myths and legends, which were made up by the poor scholars and cultivators of the later generations. But now Hou Yi's descendants were in front of him. However, Zhang Tian felt that at least a portion of these legends were true, and could even be considered history. It seemed that the Earth and the other multidimensional worlds were far more interesting than he had thought. They were worth exploring. The twilight of the gods and the battle of the fallen deities. This old man has heard a thing or two. Yi's face turned solemn. Then he looked a little confused and sighed. But I don't know the exact time. Maybe it's just a different version of the War of the Untainted, because the Untainted is the human world. This history was too long and there were no written records. It might even be a fault of civilization. Therefore, Yi didn't even know which part of the prehistoric era the twilight of the gods took place in. He didn't even know if the heavenly kingdom was a world fragment formed by the witches and demons during the War of the Untainted, or if it was formed by the escape during the twilight of the gods. It was no wonder. Yi was only a resident of the heavenly kingdom, and he had Hou Yi's bloodline. He didn't personally experience that history. Much of the history was passed down by word of mouth. He didn't know many secrets at all. But there was one thing that Yi was sure of. The heavenly kingdom originally belonged to the Qiong tribe in the human world. There were Qiong tribe members, giants, and Hou Yi's bloodline. They had strong bodies and the ability to move mountains and fill seas. Hou Yi was the tribe leader of the Qiong tribe. As expected, poor is the simplified word for Qiong. Area Shirtion, Qiong Tsongdun. It's actually referring to the sky. Zhang Tian nodded. This point was in line with his conjecture. But Yi deduced from the legends of the tribe, it was very likely that the man-made sky wasn't made by the Qiong tribe, but was given by an ancient deity. It might even be from an extraterrestrial civilization. Hearing this, Zhang Tian was also shocked and his brows slowly furrowed. Which force or which almighty being created this star dome map? Chapter 1040. After all, although those star maps weren't the top Dharma treasures in the cultivation world, they couldn't be used without the ability of a soul formation cultivator. For a moment, those vast years, those civilizations of the past, were like a cloud of unpredictable fog spreading in front of Zhang Tian's eyes, blocking his vision. According to Yi's explanation, the radiant holy race was originally an invader from the heavens. They had once unleashed a heavenly phenomenon-level calamity in ancient Wuxia, unleashing boundless radiance that resembled 10 consecutive suns. The earth cracked, the rivers dried up, the crops and forests were charred, and countless people lost their lives. At the critical moment, Hou Yi appeared with the sun-shooting arrow. He stood in ancient Kunlun and shot the arrow through the sky, killing 8 overlords of the Holy Clan of Light. The remaining ones surrendered. Zhang Tian had a half-smile on his face. Whether the real situation was like that was buried in the dust of history, no one could verify it. Anyone's words weren't real evidence and could be faked. For example, Saint Adam was just a messenger of the Sacred Hall, a slightly powerful member of the Holy Clan of Light, but the Holy See said he was the ancestor of mankind and the Son of God. In fact, there was no God. How could Saint Adam reproduce human beings? Just like Lu Huaxi called himself Pluto, but the Pluto in Greek mythology was Hades. Zeus, Hera, and the others were just powerful superpowered people who were named after the 12 gods in Greek mythology. If Zhang Tian hadn't killed them, they might have been able to deceive the world and gain a group of believers. However, Zhang Tian didn't need to interrupt Yi. Whether those legends were true or not, at least those people were on his side. Yi continued. Hou Yi didn't kill the last grand cultivator of the Holy Clan of Light who surrendered. Instead, he kept him in the tribe and many of them even joined. Hearing this, Zhang Tian secretly shook his head. If Grand Magus Hou Yi really had such a powerful record, he would be very powerful and could be called a grand cultivator. However, she was too soft-hearted. Sure enough, just as Zhang Tian had guessed, after the Heaven's Vault tribe broke away from the ancient earth and formed a dimensional world, that expert from the Holy Tribe of Light who had submitted to him had suddenly turned traitor and led many experts from the Holy Tribe of Light to assassinate Hou Yi. Your ancestors are from the rarely seen ancient era's war clan. The strength of their bodies far surpasses that of ordinary people. Hou Yi is likely even more powerful. He could uproot mountains with his strength. How could they be defeated? Zhang Tian frowned. Yi clenched his fists tightly, his entire body trembling with grief and indignation. It turned out that this expert had been secretly colluding with Hou Yi's wife, and wanted to replace her and occupy this paradise. Logically speaking, with Hou Yi's strength he could completely suppress them. However, regardless of whether it was repairing the dome or building the array to push the continent, they all consumed too much of Hou Yi's divine power. At that time Hou Yi was already old and weak. He had also been betrayed and plotted against by the Holy Tribe of Light. Unfortunately, he had died tragically and was chopped into pieces by the Holy Tribe of Light. However, this traitor had changed and called himself the Holy Ancestor of Light. He had changed the Heaven's Vault world to heaven and established the Sacred Hall to become the master of this world. He had also slaughtered Hou Yi's descendants for thousands of years. The more Yi spoke, the angrier he became. Tears welled up in his eyes as he roared loudly. Originally, the Heaven's Vault race was the largest race in this dimensional world. At its peak there were tens of millions of people. However, in recent years, the Sacred Hall has carried out a policy of extermination against the Heaven's Vault race. After a protracted massacre, there are only tens of thousands of people left. Although our race is very weak now, we have never slacked off to avenge our ancestors. The flames of revenge in our hearts have never been extinguished. Jiang Tian sighed softly to show that he understood. If this was true, it would be truly infuriating. Originally, Hou Yi had already shown mercy by sparing the Holy Ancestor. Who would have thought that the Holy Ancestor would not only not be grateful, but also steal his beloved wife? This double betrayal was indeed despicable and shameless. If the Holy Ancestor had not carried out the policy of extermination and had given them a way out and treated them as equals, this hatred might have faded after thousands of years. It might even have slowly assimilated. However, after a protracted massacre of the giant race, this hatred would only deepen until they could not live under the same sky. Yi held Jiang Tian's hand and said excitedly, "I never expected this from Earth. I didn't expect that Immortal Master Jiang would actually fight his way to the heavenly kingdom from the wastelands of Earth. You've advanced triumphantly all the way and you're invincible," he said passionately. "This old man and my people are willing to follow Immortal Master Jiang and overthrow his tyranny. We will destroy the Sacred Hall and kill the Holy Ancestor to avenge our dead people. Follow Immortal Master Jiang and overthrow the tyranny of the Sacred Hall. Twist the heads of the Sacred Emperor and the Holy Ancestor and kick them like balls. Fight. Fight them to the death. Fight. Even if we all die in battle, we can't let them go." The giant race shouted and waved their big iron clubs, giant hammers and axes. Their faces were red and their eyes were bloodshot. For a long time, we lived in seclusion in the wilderness and stood aloof from worldly affairs, but they killed our people and destroyed our home. An old man recounted the past with tears in his eyes. One thing after another, stained with blood and tears. The sins of the Sacred Hall were too numerous to be recorded. They had been hunted down by the Sacred Hall and had family members who had died in the hands of the Sacred Hall. The hatred was as deep as the sea and was engraved in their hearts. Many children of the giant race wiped their tears. Even children a few years old who were carried by their parents cried, "Fight them to the death. Avenge Grandpa. Woo-woo. Fight them to the death. Big Brother Jiang, take us with you." Even some of the girls were shouting with weapons in their hands. This time the Titan tribe had moved out in full force. They had burned down their homes and territories, not leaving behind any living supplies. They had left no way out for themselves. Either the entire tribe died in battle, or they would destroy the Saint Hall and destroy this unfair world. Before this, they were no match for the Sacred Hall. They were too weak and could only fight guerrilla warfare in the northern mountains to preserve their strength. Now that Jiang Tian had arrived and pushed forward, they saw the hope of victory. They were going to fight to the death with the Sacred Hall. This might be their only chance to change their fate. At this time, all the giant race, men and women, were not afraid of death. They were determined to perish together with the enemy. They were of one mind and were fearless. They were incomparably solemn and stirring. They were prepared for the worst. Even if they all died in battle, it would be better than being trampled on like ants by the Sacred Hall. Good, come with me. Destroy the Sacred Hall, kill the Sacred Emperor and Sacred Ancestor, and return this world to its former glory. Facing Yi Ye's expectant eyes and the pleading of his people, Jiang Tian could not refuse. He gladly agreed and raised his arm. Jiang Tian could not stay in this world forever. He needed a representative. And the Sky Tribe was originally the owner of this place. It was perfectly justified to return it to its rightful owner. It was the best. Destroy the sacred hall, kill the sacred emperor and sacred ancestor. Instantly the crowd gathered. All the giant race looked at Zhang Tian with infinite admiration. They were full of hope and excitement. At this time to them Zhang Tian was like a savior. He was their only hope. Zai Kang Teichu is too reckless. He has been bewitched by the giant race. Why do they want to die? Isn't it good to live? Yes, even if they live as slaves it's good. This world is so beautiful. If the giant race does not resist, the sacred light tribe will not kill them. Many elves secretly shook their heads. They thought that Zhang Tian did not have the slightest chance of winning. They thought that the resistance of the giant race was meaningless. He Kang Teichu is indeed a talent. But after all he came from the lower realm. He is too short-sighted. How can he know the power and horror of the top powerhouses in the heavenly kingdom? Mickey sighed softly in her heart. Her face turned cold. She directly led her people away in a hurry. As if avoiding snakes and scorpions, she no longer cared about Zhang Tian. Chapter 1041. As the saying went, a gentleman would not stand under a collapsing wall. If Mei Ji came to make peace and succeeded in mediating, she would be able to leave a good impression on both sides. However, if Zhang Tian insisted on fighting, she would think that he was digging his own grave. If she got too close to Zhang Tian, the fate of the elf tribe would be very miserable in the future. Immortal Master Zhang, it's our fortune to be able to fight side by side with you for the first time. At this time, Yi took off the huge bow on his back and handed it to Zhang Tian with both hands. This old man has nothing to give you. This bow was used by our ancestor Ho Yi to shoot the sun. It's called the sky-shaking bow, also known as the sky-shaking bow. Our tribe regards it as a sacred object. Today I give it to you, Immortal Master Zhang. I hope it can help you. The size of the bow was astonishing. It was 2 meters long and was more than 10 centimeters taller than Zhang Tian. It was made of some strange metal and was covered with complicated patterns. It gave off a frightening black light and weighed more than 10,000 kilograms. Zhang Tian knew that it was a precious treasure. It was even more precious than the flying swords of the deity of 9 swords. Ha ha, Grandpa, are you really going to give it to him? This bow is even bigger than him. It doesn't seem right. At the side, Yi Xiaoman covered her mouth with her hand and chuckled softly. She looked at Zhang Tian with ridicule and disdain. Of course she hated the Holy Church and the Holy Clan of Light. Of course she wanted to destroy the Holy Church of Light. However, she did not believe that Zhang Tian would win. Everyone knew that the Earth world was a wasteland. Those who stayed on Earth back then were like ants abandoned by the Holy Church. It was impossible for them to defeat the Holy Church. Besides, this sky-shaking bow was an ancient treasure. Its value was immeasurable. He had been eyeing it for a long time. She had the right to inherit it. Of course, she would not be happy if her grandpa gave it to Zhang Tian. Xiaoman, don't be rude. Yi scolded his granddaughter. Then he held the bow with both hands and said, Immortal Master Zhang, take this. Zhang Tian knew that it was a treasure, but he was also aware of Yi Xiaoman's intentions. He smiled and said, Old clan master, a gentleman does not take what others like. Since this bow is the sacred object of your people, how can I take it? Alas, Immortal Master Zhang, the enemy is right in front of us. You don't have to be polite. Yi laughed heartily, appearing heroic and magnanimous. To tell you the truth, this bow and arrow were made of ancient meteoric iron, nourished by the natural aura of the 5 elements, and tempered by thunderbolts and earthly fires for hundreds of years. The power of this bow and arrow is too strong. For thousands of years, no one in my clan has been able to pull it open. If that's the case, then it would be impolite for me to refuse. Zhang Tian laughed and took the heaven-shaking bow. Zhang Tian's flying sword was the most powerful weapon within a 10-mile radius. Any further and it would be useless. It could only be used as a close-range weapon. Originally, Zhang Tian had been lacking a suitable long-range weapon. At this moment he did not hesitate anymore. Suddenly Yi Xiaoman rolled her eyes and said, Big brother Zhang, your talent is amazing, your cultivation is powerful, and you are born with extraordinary strength. You must be able to pull it open, right? Why don't you pull it open for us to see? She did not believe that Zhang Tian could pull open the heaven-shaking bow. Since the beginning of time, no one in the giant tribe had been able to pull it open. Those dragon-slaying warriors, those heroes who could uproot mountains, those famous geniuses, none of them had ever been able to pull it open. The giant tribe was known for their powerful physique and strength. If they could not pull it open, how could Kong Techu do it? Kong Techu was able to pull it open not because of his powerful physique, but because of his Dharma spells and immortal skills. However, these were useless when it came to pulling open the heaven-shaking bow. She thought that if Zhang Tian could not pull open the heaven-shaking bow, not only would she be able to persuade her grandfather to take back the bow and arrow, but she would also be able to humiliate Zhang Tian. I heard that the heaven-shaking bow is very powerful. Once it shoots out an arrow, it can cause mountains to crumble and the sun to dim. Yi Xiaoman looked around and said softly, "Everyone wants to see how powerful this heaven-shaking bow is, right? Pull the bow. Pull the bow. Pull the bow." As soon as these words came out, the faces of the many giant warriors were filled with excitement. Their blood was boiling as they raised their arms and shouted, their shouts soaring into the sky. They were straightforward and hot-blooded. They were not as scheming as Yi Xiaoman. It turned out that during the giant tribe's traditional festival, the giant warriors pulling open the heaven-shaking bow was a tradition. Yi Xiaoman's interest was piqued. They wanted to see how powerful the legendary heaven-shaking bow was. "Immortal Master Jiang, why don't you give it a try? If you can pull it off, it will boost our morale." Yi wanted to stop them. However, when he saw that the giant warriors were excited, he smiled and looked at Zhang Tian expectantly. Zhang Tian shook his head and said, "Once the heaven-shaking bow is pulled open, it's too powerful. I'm afraid you can't handle it. So let's forget about it." As soon as these words were spoken, Yi couldn't help but reveal a wisp of disappointment, and then he laughed bitterly before he changed the topic. He had thought that Zhang Tian might not be able to pull open the heaven-shaking bow. After all, Zhang Tian was too young. However, he still had a glimmer of hope in his heart. Now his hope was completely destroyed. Yi was worried that Zhang Tian might not be a match for the Holy Tribe of Light. Everyone had their own thoughts. The army continued to march toward the sacred hall. Yi Xiaoman pulled Yi and said in a low voice, "Grandfather, Kong Techu can't pull open the heaven-shaking bow. How can he fight the divine ancestor and the divine emperor with his spells? I don't think he can do it. I think we shouldn't get involved. Let's go back to the northern wilderness." "Go back? We have nowhere to go, my child." Yi shook his head. His face was resolute, but there was a hint of determination in his eyes. That was right. Yi and the giant tribe had no choice but to release the arrow. After all, the fate of the giant tribe was at stake. Even if there was only a slim chance of survival, they had to fight to the death. That night they arrived at the third sacred mountain. There was still no resistance. At night the army set up camp and rested for a while. Zhang Tian was meditating in a place filled with spiritual qi. Suddenly, a beautiful figure floated toward him. "Kong Techu, retreat." Yi Xiaoman's eyes were cold. Her voice was cold. "You'll put my people in a hopeless situation." She was wearing a well-tailored leopard skin coat with silver chain mail on the outside and a pair of dragon skin boots on her feet, which accentuated her curvaceous figure. Her slender and powerful thighs were filled with explosive and wild beauty. Any supermodel on Earth would be ashamed of her voluptuous figure and would want to be remade. She wore a golden crown on her head, and the two peacock feathers on it swayed in the wind, making her look heroic and clean. Her hair was braided into numerous black pigtails, and her small face was delicate and fair, but it added a bit of playfulness and cuteness to her. The huge demon character floating above Zhang Tian's head slowly opened his eyes. He smiled and said, "You have no confidence in me?" "That's right." Yi Xiaoman sneered at Chen Fan. "Do you think the powerful people of the Holy Tribe of Light are afraid of you? No, they're just luring us in. There are many powerful people on the first sacred mountain. There are divine knights, elders and holy emperors. Their strength is equivalent to the golden core cultivators of the East. You won't win." Yi Xiaoman's eyes were filled with confidence. "I won't win." Zhang Tian looked calm, but he sighed in his heart. This little girl had feelings for him. However, the heaven-shaking bow was indeed a treasure. It was understandable that she had feelings. "Do you still think that you can win this battle?" Yi Xiaoman's eyes widened in shock and she almost screamed out loud. "According to the cultivation system of the East, you are just a foundation establishment cultivator. There is no way a foundation establishment cultivator can win against a golden core cultivator. You're like a paper doll. They will tear you to pieces." She softened her tone and said sincerely, Immortal Master Jiang, you are one of the most powerful people on earth. Why do you want to die here and make your family sad? Golden Core Cultivator? Jiang Tian's face flashed with disdain. He shook his head and said lightly. I can destroy them with a wave of my hand. I can even defeat a nascent soul cultivator if I fight to the death. Jiang Tian's words were naturally not exaggerated at all. In fact, he had 3 divine bodies. The true essence in each of them could reach the level of a golden core cultivator. However, Jiang Tian had suppressed his cultivation in order to form a divine-grade golden core and the chaotic divine body. In other words, Jiang Tian's cultivation was comparable to 3 early-stage golden core cultivators. With the help of his divine powers and secret arts, he could even kill more golden core cultivators alone. Of course, Jiang Tian would have to fight a nascent soul cultivator. It would be a lot more dangerous. Even if he could win, he would suffer great losses. Many secret arts and divine powers were performed at the cost of burning one's blood essence, lifespan, and damaging one's foundation. That was why Jiang Tian had used a dirty trick to subdue Bai Zhe in the Heavenly Star Small World. He did not fight with the veteran golden core cultivators. It's precisely because you want to obtain that heaven-shaking bow that you have to brag about yourself. You're already dead. What's the point of being greedy? When Yi Xiaoman heard this, she was so angry that her full chest heaved up and down violently. Get lost. Jiang Tian's face turned cold. If it were not for Yi, Jiang Tian would have killed this unruly little girl. What did you say? Although the giant tribe had declined, Yi Xiaoman was still the daughter of a noble family. She had never been bullied like this before. I said get lost. Do you think you have the right to interfere in this important matter? If you want to retreat, go to your grandpa. I have my own plans. Jiang Tian looked calm, but his eyes were sharp. I can give you the heaven-shaking bow, but you have to retreat to earth immediately. Don't be so ignorant and do harm to others. Yi Xiaoman was so angry that her face turned red. She gritted her teeth and pulled out her sword. She pointed it at Jiang Tian and said coldly, If you don't listen to me, I will teach you a lesson. Chapter 1042. Xiaoman, don't be rude. Yi suddenly appeared and scolded her angrily. If you dare to do this again, I will kick you out of the family. Yi Xiaoman smiled embarrassedly and put away her sword. Grandpa, I was just joking with Immortal Master Jiang. I am no match for him. She did not know that she had just brushed past the Grim Reaper. To Jiang Tian. He had received the ancient bow from the Sky Tribe. His status was noble and his cultivation level was high. Logically speaking, he would not argue with a small fry like Yi Xiaoman. However, Yi Xiaoman had pulled out her sword and pointed it at Jiang Tian. That was not an ordinary provocation. If Jiang Tian killed her, Yi would not have anything to say. In the worst case, Jiang Tian would just return the giant bow and cut off their relationship. Jiang Tian could not be bothered with her. He raised his eyebrows and looked at Yi. There are powerful cultivators coming, right? Yi was surprised and said anxiously, Immortal Master Jiang, you are really good at predicting things. The scouts in front said that a group of Foundation establishment cultivators are coming. They seem to be members of the Radiant Royal family. Don't worry. They will be here soon. However, they are not going to kill anyone. They are probably here to deliver a message. Jiang Tian's expression was calm as he said indifferently. Ah, Immortal Master Jiang, you are indeed extraordinary. I am dozens of miles away from here and you can already sense it. Beams of dazzling holy light streaked across the sky like rainbows piercing through the sun, landing on the mountain peak. Surround them. Prepare for battle. Lu Huaxi ordered. Immediately, all of the fallen angels and giants flew over and surrounded the dozen or so people. Surrounded by many lords of the holy mountain and knights of light, a handsome young man in white robes with a face as fair as jade and faintly exuding holy light slowly walked over. The leader of the elf tribe, Mei Ji, followed behind him. She was trembling in fear and bowing to him. Although this young man's cultivation base was not at the peak of the early Foundation establishment stage, and he had 3 halos, his face was calm and collected. His eyes were filled with disdain and arrogance, and he emanated a towering aura. Even the holy lords in the late stage of the Foundation establishment realm treated him as their center and clustered around him like a myriad of stars surrounding the moon. It was obvious that this person's status wasn't low. When Yi saw this person, he was instantly enraged. He gnashed his teeth and clenched his fists. Yi Xiaoman and the other Yuqiong tribesmen were also furious. It was clear that this person had a deep grudge with the giant tribe. He's the son of the Sage Emperor, the seventh son of the Sage Emperor, and also the Holy Lord of the Second Holy Mountain. The Sage Emperor values him greatly, and he might become the Emperor of Heavenly Country in the future. Upon seeing this person, Lu Huaxi's pupils shrank and his expression changed slightly. He sent a message to Jiang Tian using his psychic power. The sacred prince's status was naturally not low. In the future he would be the ruler of this dimension. But now Jiang Tian dominated the earth and was the ruler of Heavenly Star. Since when did he have such a character in his eyes? His face was as calm as still water as he said, "Why have you come to find me? Do you want to fight with me?" The seventh Saint Prince's posture was elegant, and his temperament was pure and holy. He smiled faintly and said, "My father wants to challenge Immortal Master Jiang to a duel on the first sacred mountain the day after tomorrow, on Mount Xingzhu." He presented an invitation with both hands. It was made of crystals and emitted a gentle glow. It was exquisitely carved like a work of art. He said politely, "My father cares about the creatures in Heavenly Country. Please don't kill them on your way to the sacred ancestor mountain." "Your father?" Jiang Tian said mockingly. "Who does your father think he is? Does he even have the right to fight with me? You instigated the Holy See to become the enemy of Tianqing School and killed so many people. Why can't I kill the people here? I'll say it again. Those who stand in my way will die. If you don't want to die, get out of my sight." Hearing this, Lu Huaxi and Yi Ye's faces changed. Yi Xiaomen was so shocked that she almost jumped. "Kong Teichu, my father is the sacred emperor of Heavenly Country, the ruler of this world. He is extremely respected and commands the people. Even the holy knights in the Senate would have to kneel before him when they saw him. Don't you think you're being too presumptuous?" The seventh Saint Prince's eyes suddenly turned cold. In Heavenly Country, politics and religion were united. The sacred hall was where the faith of this place was. The sacred emperor was the leader of the sacred hall and the ruler of Heavenly Country. He ruled over billions of people and was the supreme ruler of this vast land. The seventh Saint Prince's body shone brightly. His eyebrows were like stars and his face was so perfect that he looked like the most perfect piece of art in the hands of a god. Moreover, he was tall and dressed in luxurious clothes. His every movement was elegant and charming, just like a real god in a Western fantasy movie. "Who do you think you are? How dare you criticize me?" Jiang Tian harumphed and a powerful soul devourer chi burst out and rushed toward the seventh Saint Prince. The seventh Saint Prince was also at the third level of the Foundation establishment level. He was one of the best among the younger generation in Heavenly Country, but he was far weaker than Jiang Tian. Moreover, Jiang Tian had absorbed the soul devourer chi from the fiend body of purgatory. Dang! Dang! The seventh Saint Prince's body trembled and he retreated 8 steps. Blood dripped from the corner of his mouth and his face was as pale as a sheet of paper. Even though Jiang Tian had followed the rule of not killing envoys in a war between two countries, he had held back a lot and only used a very light divine sense attack. Moreover, it had only been a brief collision, but the seventh Saint Prince's divine sense had still been damaged and he had suffered quite a bit. "Immortal Master Jiang, we're only here to deliver a letter of challenge. You're the lord of a world. Don't you think it's too cruel to attack the lord of a sacred mountain?" A 6-winged angel walked out from the crowd. He had 9 halos around his body and his center was almost solid. His face was furious and his eyes were filled with displeasure as he stepped forward and bowed. "The lord of the third sacred mountain. His father is one of the 12 patriarchs. He's much more powerful than the other angels." Lu Huaxi was behind Jiang Tian and transmitted his voice to him. Although the third sacred mountain wasn't big, it was very close to the artificial sun. Other than the second sacred mountain and the Xingzhu mountain, they were the only ones blessed by nature. This person's cultivation was equivalent to a false core cultivator. In this world, other than the sage emperor, the mysterious divine knight, and the old geezers and living fossils of the Council of Elders, he was the strongest. It's because he's an envoy that I didn't kill him. Otherwise, he would have been dead by now if he dared to talk to me like that. Jiang Tian said mockingly, "He's just a Foundation establishment level kid. How dare he talk to me like that? He's courting death. What nonsense is he talking about? This is a war. What's the reason why he asked me not to kill the enemy? If the enemy is just luring me in and surrounding me, wouldn't I have fallen into your trap? Do you think I'm a 3-year-old kid? Yes. Master Celestial Jiang, this is how it should be. You can't accept the challenge and be led by the nose by them. Yi's eyes flickered as he sent a message to Jiang Tian with a serious face. We should kill all of the enemy's forces. We should either beat them until they surrender or kill them all. Jiang Tian's face was calm and he didn't seem to be moved at all. He just looked at the many envoys with ridicule. The third sacred master pondered for a while and then said, "We will never resort to such tricks. We hope to have a showdown. We want to settle all the disputes with one battle. If the sacred emperor loses, you will be the ruler of this world. If you lose, everyone here will be at the mercy of the sacred hall." I'll be the ruler? Jiang Tian narrowed his eyes. In fact, Jiang Tian was going to attack the sacred hall to get the spirit chi recovery seed. Qing'er and his gluttonous daughter were at death's door. He didn't know how long the spirit chi recovery seed could last. So Jiang Tian couldn't wait. He couldn't wait. Of course, just as Yi had guessed, the sacred emperor must have made ample preparations for this battle. However, for his wife and daughter, Jiang Tian had no other choice. He had to hurry. Okay, I agree. Jiang Tian nodded. Yi, Xiaoman, Lu Huaxi and the others' expressions changed drastically, but it was too late to stop him. Chapter 1043. Alright, we will be waiting for you outside the Saint Hall one day later. I hope you will keep your promise. The third Saint Master bowed again and led the group away. Before the 7th Saint Prince left, he turned around and glared fiercely at Jiang Tian. Then he revealed a mocking smile as if Jiang Tian was dead for sure. He was of noble status and had a group of elites protecting him. He had killed countless people and his hands were stained with blood. He had killed hundreds of thousands of people. Normally, when he mentioned his name, his enemies would tremble in fear and kneel down to surrender. If they did not surrender to him, he did not even need to do anything. The powerful knights around him would take care of them for him. He had never suffered such a great loss before. He swore that he would come up with a plan to kill Jiang Tian. Mickey looked at Jiang Tian with a complicated expression. She shook her head and sighed in her heart. The 7th Saint Prince had created a pocket for Jiang Tian to hide in. Who would have thought that Jiang Tian would agree to the challenge? This person was able to rise up in such a backward and filthy world like Earth. He is indeed talented. However, he has too little combat experience. He does not know how powerful the Saint Hall is and how dangerous this situation is. After they left, Yi frowned and said, "Celestial Master Jiang, do you really have to accept this challenge? I'm afraid. A scheme? In front of absolute strength, all schemes and tricks are nothing." Jiang Tian sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes slowly. The huge demon character above his head floated slowly. The Saint Emperor is a golden core elite. Moreover, he has the protection of the Senate and the Divine Knights. Yi Xiaoman's face was filled with worry as she exclaimed, "If we were to take down the sacred mountains and forces one by one, we might still have a chance to win. But now, are these people very powerful?" Jiang Tian asked casually. "Very powerful," Lu Huaxi said honestly. "I don't know how long he has lived. He has been absorbing the sunlight and gathering the saint light. I heard that he had already formed the light crystal 300 years ago. He has never been defeated in 10,000 battles. Ever since I was born, I have always heard of his legend. More importantly, there are 12 supreme elders and 13 divine knights around her. All of them have formed light crystals. There are also rumors that there are many mysterious artifacts in the Saint Hall. Even the artificial sun can attack. They have the home field advantage." "Is that so?" Jiang Tian raised his eyelids, his heart trembling slightly. More than 20 gold core cultivators. There were too many experts in this battle. It was extremely dangerous. Far surpassing the gathering of heavenly star Green Hill. Even the Saint Emperor was more powerful than Li Longyuan and even the few veteran golden core cultivators in the stellar sky domain. This was because his physique was different. Even if he had a holy physique, even if his bloodline was very thin, he should have condensed a middle grade or even higher gold core. This battle was extremely risky. The slightest mistake could result in death. However, Jiang Tian had no other choice. Even if he had to risk his life, he had to fight. For the sake of his wife and children, Jiang Tian was fearless. Besides, he still had the heaven-shaking bow in his hands. Jiang Tian knew that it was a true spirit artifact or even a true artifact. You can discuss among yourselves. If you don't want to go, I won't blame you. Let's part here. We will still be friends in the future. However, I must go. Jiang Tian closed his eyes again. Like an old monk in meditation, he absorbed the power of the stars in the sky rhythmically and rhythmically. If I die, I will definitely snatch the awakened spirit chi seed. When the time comes, don't fight. Return to Earth immediately and hand it over to your sister Qing'e. Disband Tianqing School and live in seclusion. Jiang Tian transmitted a message to Huang Linger with his divine senses. He had already prepared for the worst. His love for Sister Qing'e is as deep as the sea. He doesn't even care about his life. Huang Linger's beautiful eyes glistened with tears. She sighed softly and sat down behind Jiang Tian to protect Jiang Tian. Her face was as calm as still water. However, her clear eyes were exceptionally bright. Her gaze was firm and sharp. Through the tears, she looked at the high and mighty First Sacred Mountain and the Templar Church. Beside her, Lu Huaxi scratched his ears and cheeks like a monkey. Many complicated expressions flashed across his face. Fear, anxiety, regret, anger, and so on. However, in the end, he stomped his feet and roared loudly, I will go. I have been bullied by the Templar Church and the Holy King for so long. I have had enough. Could he not go? He had already handed over the blood soul. If Jiang Tian died, he would be finished immediately. At this moment, he wished that he could go to a secluded place and cry silently. The few old fellows of the giant tribe discussed in the tent. In the end, they all decided to follow Jiang Tian and fight to the death with the Templar Church. In fact, Yi Xiaoman was resolutely against this battle. She thought that it was suicidal. However, most of her tribesmen, including her grandfather Yi Yi, were stubborn. They would fight to the death with the Templar Church. She had no choice but to follow Jiang Tian to the battlefield. The next day they continued their journey. As expected, the Holy King announced to the world that Jiang Tian had encountered very few resistance when they passed through the third sacred mountain. Their speed suddenly increased. On the morning of the third day, they arrived at the second sacred mountain. At this time, the Templar Church was only a few dozen kilometers away from them. The first sacred mountain was very close to the artificial sun. It was a few dozen kilometers wide and more than 10,000 feet tall. However, the top of the mountain was not like the other peaks. Instead, it was flattened by a monstrous force, forming a platform that was a few dozen kilometers wide. The ground was made of hard crystals that seemed to have been melted and condensed into a whole body. It was round and shiny, shining with a soft holy light. If one could cut a piece of it and bring it to earth, it would be priceless. On the ground, numerous sacred palaces rose from the ground. They were grand and imposing, and they were carved with complicated decorative patterns. They seemed to be made of glass, and they were sparkling and translucent, reflecting a strange light. It was dazzling. In the square in front of the grand hall, around the huge stone pillars of faith, the ground was originally made of melted crystals. But for some reason, many trees, shrubs, and exotic plants grew there. The green leaves were like jade, and the petals were like carvings of agate. They were all translucent and shining, as if they were coated with a layer of enamel. Butterflies fluttered among the trees, shrubs, and flowers. Bees buzzed, adding a rare wisp of vitality to this sacred place. Kang Teichu, I didn't expect you to go against the heavens and fight your way to the Templar Church. I've underestimated you. At this time, a loud voice came from the depths of the Templar Church. It was like thunder from the 9 heavens. Before the voice came, a violent pressure had already arrived. Magical energy was like an ocean, and holy light suffused the air. It was vast and mighty, like the heavenly river pouring down in torrents, bombarding the mountains to the point they trembled and trees to the point they collapsed. The Holy King. In other words, he was the master of the Holy Hall. He commanded the kingdom of heaven. He was a supreme existence in this world. He was finally going to appear. Chapter 1044. Not bad. You're even stronger than Li Longyuan, a golden core cultivator. You're only slightly weaker than Bai Zhe. Jiang Tian's face was slightly stern. The sacred race of light had a special physique. They had the sacred light constitution. Although it wasn't the most powerful deity constitution, it was still stronger than ordinary spirit roots. The sacred king had occupied this world for thousands of years and was blessed by nature. He absorbed faith every day, condensed his divine soul, refined the sacred light, and formed a sacred body. Zhang Tian wasn't surprised by his strength. Since you're a talent, I won't kill you if you surrender. You'll be the master of the 9th sacred mountain and guard the sacred hall. You'll only be under me. The sacred king spoke again. His divine might filled the sky and spread hundreds of miles across the 10 sacred mountains. Many people in this world heard it. In fact, the news of the battle had already spread across the world. Many overlords had come to watch. Hundreds of thousands of overlords had gathered on the sacred mountains. Suddenly, many people were shocked and couldn't believe it. Then they looked at Zhang Tian and wondered what he would do. Many people didn't expect that after Zhang Tian killed the representative of the sacred hall in the mortal world, destroyed a sacred mountain and killed thousands of people, the sacred king wasn't determined to kill Zhang Tian. Instead, he was trying to rope him in. The sacred lord of the 2nd sacred mountain was no joke. He was second only to one person and above everyone else. Moreover, he had the authority to freely enter and exit the sacred hall, bathe in the sacred light of the artificial sun, and enjoy the vast power of faith and cultivation resources. He could improve his cultivation at a rapid pace. That was an irresistible temptation, especially for someone like Zhang Tian, who was at the pinnacle of the earth realm. He already controlled a country and a sect. He had more wealth than he could spend in a few lifetimes. All kinds of beautiful women could come and go as he wished. What else could attract him? Only cultivation resources and cultivation. He could improve his cultivation endlessly until he reached immortality. Immortal Master Jiang, please don't abandon us. At this time, Yi, Lu Huaxi and the other overlords looked at Zhang Tian nervously. They were afraid that Zhang Tian would agree. If Zhang Tian was recruited, his life wouldn't be in danger and he would even be put in an important position. But that might not be the case for them. It was very likely that the sage emperor would completely wipe them out. After all, they were not as useful as Zhang Tian. He'll probably agree to it. Yi Xiaoman, on the other hand, clenched her fists tightly. Her expression was gloomy and her heart was in a mess. If Kang Teichu could convince the Saint Hall not to attack the giants, then everyone could come to a truce. That would be a pretty good ending. Kang Teichu, surrender. I'm afraid this is your only chance. Joan of Arc smiled bitterly and shook her head. Before this, she still had some hope for Zhang Tian. But when she felt the supreme pressure of the Saint Emperor, she was afraid, shaken, and filled with regret. How could a mere mortal be able to shake a supreme Saint Emperor? I actually followed him to commit a monstrous sin of murder. Kang Teichu, isn't peace good? Why must we start a war? Mickey also appeared once again to persuade him earnestly. Sage Emperor, you think too highly of yourself if you want me to be your subordinate. Come down and accept your death. Zhang Tian didn't even spare a glance at the two women's clamor. His handsome and extraordinary face revealed a trace of ridicule, and his eyes were filled with disdain as he flung his sleeves and laughed loudly. Lu Huaxi and Yi both revealed looks of endless reverence when they heard this. At this time, Zhang Tian's domineering aura was monstrous. His eyes were wild and unruly. There was a kind of heaven-shaking awe around him. It was as if the entire kingdom of heaven was not in his eyes. It was as if he could suppress the entire 9 heavens in 10 miles. A real man should be like this. Yi was filled with admiration for Zhang Tian and secretly gave him a thumbs up. Lu Huaxi also thought that Zhang Tian's choice was very wise. Kang Teichu, are you really going to be stubborn and continue to make mistakes? On the Saint Ancestor Mountain, a few 6-winged angels appeared and slowly opened the magnificent arched door of the Saint Hall. The door of the Kingdom of Heaven's center of power opened. A group of elders walked out slowly and landed on the edge of the square, looking down at Zhang Tian. Powerful auras covered the sky and earth like a vast ocean, pushing down horizontally. The strange beast screamed in fear and stumbled back. Many giants' faces turned as white as paper. It was very uncomfortable. Even Yi and Lu Huaxi took a few steps back, their eyes filled with shock. This was a group of extraordinary people. The elders of the Saint Hall represented the strongest power of the Saint Hall. They had lived in seclusion for many years, cultivating with the help of the endless energy of the sun. No one knew how long they had lived. The Saint Hall was high up in the sky. Inside, a cross stood tall. It was carved with white energy crystals. It was crystal clear and pure, shining with endless holy light. At the top of the cross there was a simple and unadorned throne. A dignified and mighty old man sat there like a towering mountain. His white hair cascaded down like a waterfall. His chiseled face was snow-white and crystal clear. He looked down at Zhang Tian like a god. He was wearing a snow-white robe with 10 suns embroidered on his chest. His body exuded a gentle light. His blue eyes were as deep and vast as the starry sky. They seemed to be divine, as if they could create a world. Kang Techu, if you surrender, I will personally teach you the supreme saint art. In the future you will be the Pope of the Holy See. However, the Saint Emperor's face was expressionless. He had a hooked nose, deep eye sockets and thin lips, giving off a cold and emotionless feeling. As expected, in his dantian the golden core in the form of a crystal is shining with endless light. If Li Longyuan doesn't die, I'm afraid it will take him 100 years to reach this level. Zhang Tian looked up and thought. At this moment the Saint Emperor's endless aura was released like a huge wave. Even an early-stage foundation establishment powerhouse would not be able to withstand it. They would probably vomit blood from the pressure and suffer damage to their cultivation. However, Zhang Tian was like a cool breeze brushing past his face. His expression was indifferent as he proudly stood there without moving. This person is the Saint Emperor. No one knows how old he is. Many of his followers have died in batches, but he is still alive. Lu Huaxi transmitted to Zhang Tian, reminding Zhang Tian to be cautious and not let his guard down. The Saint Emperor was indeed very strong. He was already at the mid-stage golden core realm and had the sacred light physique. This kind of physique was considered very strong in the universe. At this moment, Zhang Tian could even hear the light crystal in his dantian vibrating rhythmically like a sunspot erupting. He could feel the blood in his veins as heavy as mercury. He could even feel that his spirit was as solid as 10,000 mountains, unshakable. Zhang Tian did not know whether to laugh or cry. He did not expect that the sacred light race had appeared on ancient Earth and now occupied an alternate dimension. Ancient Earth must have been very exciting. It was a glorious era with many foreign races living there. It had resisted the invasion of a super civilization, and there had been a great war between the East and the West, the War of the Fallen Immortals, the Twilight of the Gods, the Dark Age. If this period of history was fully excavated, it would definitely shock the world. Could be said to be magnificent. It's a pity that you haven't reached the nascent soul realm. Zhang Tian shook his head and sighed. The Golden Core realm and the nascent soul realm were two completely different levels. Generally speaking, those who had reached the Golden Core realm were immortals. They could break away from the mortal world, so they were usually called true immortals. As for the nascent soul realm, it was a primordial spirit that was like an infant born in the dantian. It had a physical form and was invulnerable to all spells. It was extremely powerful. With this nascent soul, a cultivator could travel through the universe without fear of spatial turbulence. It was countless times stronger than a Golden Core realm cultivator. Therefore, nascent soul realm cultivators were also called heavenly lords. They were not something a Golden Core realm cultivator could compare to. No matter how strong a Golden Core realm cultivator was, he was still immortal and could not transcend this world. Otherwise, the Heavenly King would have already traveled the universe. Why would he have any ideas about Earth? I can even kill a nascent soul realm cultivator. Besides, you haven't reached the nascent soul realm yet. Zhang Tian chuckled and said dispiritedly, "Take me as your disciple? You think too highly of yourself. Come on. After I kill you and suppress this world, I have to hurry back to Earth to see my wife and children. Kang Techu, you are too arrogant." Hearing this, the sacred emperor narrowed his eyes and shot out a beam of sacred light a few hundred meters long. He said coldly, "What?" He said coldly, "I know that you are a big shot on Earth. You have no opponents since you started your cultivation. That's why you are so arrogant. But you don't know that there is always someone better than you. I once read an ancient scroll. It said that a nascent soul realm cultivator could wipe out an entire country with a single slash. How could such monstrous might be something that an ant like you can provoke? Oh, you have a scroll that records ancient history? It records the great battle of nascent soul realm cultivators." Zhang Tian's interest was piqued. The power of the Saint Hall is not something you can imagine. The Heavenly King did not want to talk about it anymore. Instead, he said coldly, "Today I will kill an ant like you to announce to Earth the supreme power of the heavenly state." "What are you talking about?" Zhang Tian said impatiently, "If you want to fight, hurry up. Don't talk like a sissy. The Heavenly King could no longer hold back his anger. He pointed at Zhang Tian and shouted, I don't need to do anything to kill you. Divine Knights, kill him for me. Chapter 1045. Boom. The earth on the second sacred mountain shook. In the distance, 13 ferocious figures shot through the sky like cannons, causing the mountains to tremble. They landed a mile away from Zhang Tian and surrounded Zhang Tian like an iron wall. All of them were armed with spears, swords, and other weapons. They were clad in ancient bronze armor, and their helmets had metal masks that covered their faces. Only their terrifying eyes could be seen. They didn't move at all, and their auras were quiet and heavy. They were like volcanoes that were waiting to erupt, containing violent energy. Battle armor from the Age of Gods. Yi exclaimed, and his eyes were filled with uneasiness. He urged the unicorn to lead the overlords of the giant race forward to help Zhang Tian. The Divine Knights are said to have been invincible since the Age of Gods on ancient Earth. They are the descendants of the Divine Knights and have inherited their legacy, but they are also very powerful. Lu Huaxi trembled in fear and sent a message to Zhang Tian. The armor of the Divine Knights was dull, but it was full of sword marks and dents as if they had been dug out from an ancient tomb. The weapons in their hands, such as dragon spears, daggers, and swords, weren't very sharp, but there was a strong murderous aura around them. These were all spirit treasures that could suppress the essence soul. They were cold and heavy like dormant dragons. These Divine Knights had once suppressed Lu Huaxi. Each of them was very powerful and had killed many of his kind. He still felt numb when he encountered them. How dare these ants provoke me? Sacred Emperor, is this all you have? Zhang Tian raised his hand and signaled Yi and the others to step back. He sneered and shook his head in disappointment. Kill him. Following the Sacred Emperor's order, a Divine Knight moved. One of the Divine Knights moved. His heavy and powerful footsteps broke through the mountains and rivers. He was like a dragon soaring into the sky. His broad greatsword slashed down towards Zhang Tianli. All of a sudden, the sword whistled like the roar of a wild beast, shattering the earth and stopping the river. The huge sword burst out with endless brilliance, as if a dormant evil dragon had awakened, tearing apart the sky and crushing a 100-meter-high mountain behind Zhang Tian. The earth crumbled and the sky trembled. This was an unparalleled destructive force. This sword could destroy an aircraft carrier. The strength of this Divine Knight was indeed extraordinary, far surpassing Saint Adam. At the same time, the other Divine Knights also made their moves. Their dragon spears pierced through the void, their giant hammers smashed down like mountains, and their daggers flew up and down, trying to entangle Zhang Tian like phantoms. Kong Teichu, you dare to humiliate me. Today you will die a horrible death. I'll let you know the power of the Templar. On top of a castle in the Saint Hall, the seventh prince looked down at Zhang Tian with resentment. He grinded his teeth and grinded his teeth. He was also determined to win. I told you can't do it. Zhang Tian shouted in a low voice. He stepped into the air and stretched out his right hand. Two fair and translucent fingers caught the broadsword. What? The Divine Knight with the giant sword was horrified. He felt as if the broadsword in his hand had been fixed, unable to move at all. Then Zhang Tian flicked his finger and the giant broadsword shattered. The Divine Knight was sent flying by Zhang Tian, spitting out blood. At this time the other Divine Knights also attacked. Zhang Tian moved his body and dodged repeatedly. Sometimes he was like an old ape circling a tree. Sometimes he was like a crane standing on a lake. Sometimes he was like a dragon soaring into the sky. Sometimes he was like an eagle soaring into the sky. His movements were all in accordance with the heavenly Tao. He was simple and majestic. While dodging the attacks, he threw out punch after punch. Miserable screams filled the sky. Blood spurted out. Zhang Tian punched out and a Divine Knight's armor shattered. His weapon broke and his defensive light shield exploded. His body turned into a rain of sparkling flesh that fell to the ground. In the blink of an eye, Zhang Tian's punches were very fast. Looking from afar, it seemed as if huge blood-colored fireworks were blooming around Zhang Tian's body. In just a few breaths, the 13 strongest Divine Knights were all dead. What? The Divine Knights are dead. Many experts of the Light Church and people of the Kingdom of Heaven could not believe it. Their faces were pale as if they had lost their parents. The Divine Knights were very powerful. They were the personal guards of the sage emperors. They had received careful guidance from the sage emperors and were comparable to the masters of the holy mountains. Now they were killed by Zhang Tian. This was an unbearable loss and also a heavy psychological blow. How is this possible? Saint Joan of Arc exclaimed, her face full of astonishment. Mickey was also pale with shock. In her heart, the divine knights were invincible and indestructible like real gods. But now they were crushed by Zhang Tian like clay figurines. They're all dead? How is this possible? The seventh Saint Prince's expression was as if he was constipated. Even the Saint Emperor's calm face revealed a trace of shock, as if he didn't dare believe that Zhang Tian was so strong. Celestial Master Zhang is indeed powerful. On the other hand, Lu Huaxi and Yi were ecstatic and respectful toward Zhang Tian. This is pure physical strength. He didn't use any divine powers, but he was able to break the holy light and the battle armor of the twilight of the gods. Celestial Master Zhang is invincible, invincible, invincible. The divine knights were killed like chickens. Many fallen angels flew up and down and laughed. Celestial Master Zhang kill. Twist the sage emperor's head off and kick it like a ball. The experts of the giant tribe were so excited that their eyes were bloodshot. They raised their arms and cheered for Zhang Tian. He is just an ordinary human. How can his physical body be so powerful? Yi Xiaomen was also stunned. It was as if she had met Zhang Tian for the first time. In the crowd, only Meiji shook her head and said in a low voice, Kong Teichu is indeed powerful, but this is not the Sage Hall's trump card. He would be an idiot if he thought the Sage Hall was that simple. As expected, the Sage Emperor's face darkened. He slapped the armrest of his crystal chair and said coldly, Elders, use the ancient scrolls to kill him. Whoosh whoosh. On the first sacred mountain, the few elders at the edge of the sacred hall square had a serious look on their faces. Their eyes were filled with murderous intent as they flicked their fingers like butterflies, unleashing their saint arts as they chanted cryptic yet clear incantations. Suddenly, ancient scrolls that were yellowed flew out from the depths of the holy sea. They turned into rays of holy light and suppressed Zhang Tian. Ancient scrolls. This is an ancient treasure that was created by an ancient god. It has an extraordinary origin and cannot be replicated. The Sage Hall only has 4 scrolls. Many people cried out in shock. Even Lu Huaxi and Yi were astonished. The ancient scrolls could carry out celestial-level attacks such as floods, volcanic eruptions, blizzards and thunderbolts. They could annihilate a country or a sect and were comparable to the attack of a nascent soul overlord. In the primitive era of the earth, it was even considered a miracle by the human race on earth. It was the power of heaven. What was the concept of 4 scrolls? It was equivalent to 4 nascent soul ancestral patriarchs attacking Zhang Tian together. The sage emperor looked calm, but in fact he was in a killing frenzy. He wanted to kill Zhang Tian even if it meant giving Zhang Tian a chance to live. The first scroll was opened. On the scroll was a vast starry sky. Dark meteorites were floating in it. They were very lifelike and looked very real. Suddenly the meteorites moved. They rushed out of the scroll and smashed towards Zhang Tian. These meteorites were huge. Each of them was as big as a small mountain and carried an extremely heavy energy. They fell from a height of 10,000 meters and were extremely heavy, as if they could fill up the sea. This is just a painting. Why is it like this? When Huang Linger saw this, her pretty face turned ghastly pale. She was nervous and involuntarily cried out. There was no doubt that if this meteorite were to hit an aircraft carrier, it would be able to sink and penetrate it. Before the meteorites arrived, the overwhelming pressure had already arrived. At the moment, the second sacred mountain was engraved with many ancient runes. It was indestructible and could withstand a salvo of missiles or even a nuclear explosion. But then, violent airflows swept across the second sacred mountain and many runes were destroyed by the terrifying pressure. Their light dimmed and a terrifying cracking sound was heard. The ground trembled violently and huge cracks appeared one after another. The incomparably hard rocks turned into dust. Some areas even began to collapse in large piles. Large black cracks interweaved and rolling boulders fell like rain. Immortal Master Zhang is really in danger this time. Seeing this, Yi was shocked as if he had seen a demon. His heart skipped a beat and fell into an abyss. Chapter 1046. Lu Huaxi and the rest of the Dark Angels as well as the giants, were unable to withstand the pressure from the ancient scroll. The bones in their entire bodies emitted creaking sounds as if they would collapse in the next moment, and their skin trembled and rose and fell indeterminately like the waves of the sea. Some of the weaker giants and the fallen angels with only one or two halos spat out blood and fell to the ground. Retreat. That old bastard Saint Emperor is crazy. Lu Huaxi's eyes were filled with fear as he gritted his teeth and shouted. These meteorites were too solid and heavy. Each of them was comparable to a 10,000-foot mountain. It was no exaggeration to say that they could smash the second sacred mountain into pieces. The sacred emperor was desperate. He would rather give up the second sacred mountain to smash Zhang Tian to death. Retreat. Yi stomped his foot and decisively gave the order. This was a battle between golden core cultivators. Could move mountains and fill seas. With their cultivation they could not participate at all. They would only be implicated. Most people retreated. Only Huang Linger and Zhang Tian stood side by side. She planned to use her wood elemental spiritual body to restrain the meteorites. Zhang Tian's eyes revealed a trace of pity, but in the end he shook his head gently and stopped her. Wood could restrain earth. Originally, spiritual wood could restrain earth elemental attacks, but that was only in a battle between cultivators of the same level. The meteorites in the scroll were too big. They were already at the level of a golden core or even a nascent soul. Even if it was just one attack. Huang Linger had just built her foundation. The gap was too big. How could she resist it? Very good. You have a spatial Dharma artifact. That's already very impressive. In the face of the monstrous pressure, Zhang Tian's face was calm. He looked up at the meteorites and said indifferently, but it's still too weak to deal with me. In his previous life, Zhang Tian had once taken Lian Feng, the crown prince of a secular kingdom, as his disciple. Lian Feng was handsome and intelligent. He was the most handsome man in that kingdom and also the most talented person in cultivation. It was just that he was obsessed with painting. He once said that his eyes were untainted by worldly and evil things, and his heart was only devoted to painting cute things. Moreover, he was indeed quite talented in this field. When he was 6 years old, he had once drawn a bird. The bird was vivid and lifelike, and he had obtained the bird's charm. After adding the finishing touch, the bird flew out from the painting. He was very talented in cultivation, but when Zhang Tian taught him the way of cultivation, he was lazy to cultivate. Seeing that he refused to change, Zhang Tian was disappointed and removed his name from the sect, severing their relationship. Perhaps he was well versed in governing a country, but he was too obsessed with painting. Even when the Nanman kingdom invaded, he did not care. He was still immersed in painting and calligraphy. When he woke up from the Tao of painting and calligraphy, the Nanman kingdom had already breached his capital and was wantonly massacring the common people. His parents, the former emperor and empress of the Tang dynasty, had also been killed. The Nanman soldiers were parading their heads through the streets. When Crown Prince Lian Feng saw this, he immediately went crazy. He knelt on the ground and wailed, saying that his eyes were untainted by worldly things. He did not see the suffering of the common people, did not see the covetous eyes of the enemy, and said that his eyes were useless. He had always been a sincere person, and sincere people were often extreme and stubborn. He immediately gouged out his own eyes. He used his own blood to paint on the ground. His strokes were divine, and his blood fell like the wind and rain. In an instant he had painted Yama, demon god, ghost soldiers, ghost generals, and limitless hell. In an instant, the entire capital disappeared and turned into 18 layers of hell, trapping the enemy's army of 100,000. Some of the enemy's experts tried to escape, but they were captured by the demon god and dragged into hell. After that day, his kingdom and the Nanman kingdom were finished. Crown Prince Lian Feng's heart withered. Although Zhang Tian lamented the misfortune of this disciple who had been expelled from the sect and was angry at his incompetence, he still doted on him. After hearing that his kingdom was destroyed, Zhang Tian rushed over to save him, but he was just in time to see this shocking scene. Zhang Tian walked through the dark abyss in hell and felt his regret, grief, and despair. At the same time, he pitied his talent and accepted him as a disciple again, guiding him to cultivate. Under Zhang Tian's guidance, Crown Prince Lian Feng started with painting. He gradually understood his own Tao and stepped onto the path of cultivation. In the end, he combined cultivation with painting. His brush was like a beam, able to create and destroy the sun, moon, and stars. Splashing ink into a sea, able to drown millions of cultivators. Meticulously painting, he could create a world with endless vitality, comparable to a true god. He also became a supreme immortal emperor, known as Immortal Emperor Tian Tuesday. He had once nurtured a heavenly emperor who entered the Tao through painting. In terms of painting, Jiang Tian could be said to be a master of painting. He was a master figure. These scrolls, to put it bluntly, used the Tao of painting to form a space and absorb the earth elemental yuan qi from the meteorites into it. Compared to Crown Prince Lian Feng's, who could create things out of thin air, condense reality with charm, and even create and destroy a world, it was still incomparable. At this time, the giant meteorite was getting closer and closer to Jiang Tian. Speed was also getting faster and faster. The friction with the air caused large balls of flames to explode. The front of the meteorite had already turned into magma and flew backward. Break! Jiang Tian roared. He held Linger's waist and leaped into the air. He punched the sky and blasted upwards. The incomparably thick green wood true essence of the swaying divine tree condensed in front of him. A towering tree skyrocketed. The shadow of the swaying divine tree grew larger and larger. It was over 1,000 feet tall and became more and more solid. Its huge roots and branches danced wildly in the air. In the blink of an eye, it had spread thousands of meters long. Like a cyan phoenix, it swayed back and forth in the air as it charged towards the numerous meteors. At this time, although Jiang Tian's cultivation was suppressed to Foundation Establishment Level 3, his true essence reserves and cultivation were comparable to Golden Core cultivators. At this time, it was simply earth-shattering. Rumble. The many branches of the swaying divine tree were like giant dragons baring their fangs and brandishing their claws, grabbing the meteorites tightly. Everyone thought that the swaying divine tree would be torn to pieces by the meteorites. After all, each meteorite was 1,000 meters tall and there were many of them. However, a surprising scene appeared. The swaying divine tree's dermic power gushed out and absorbed the energy of thousands of giant meteorites. The meteorites collapsed and disappeared one after another. What? The meteorites disappeared. Lu Huaxi rubbed his eyes as if there was something wrong with them. He was shocked and in disbelief. What kind of divine power is this? He was also confused and shocked. Jiang Tian's fighting style was too magical. It was like an ancient legend. His dermic power is so vast. Yi Xiaoman's beautiful eyes widened, almost popping out of their sockets. It was as if she had seen something unbelievable. This is an ancient scroll. It is comparable to the attack of a nascent soul cultivator. What is Kong Teichu's cultivation level? Meiji was also shocked and her body trembled. He's just a mortal. Saint Joan of Arc couldn't believe what she was seeing. This guy is not afraid of the celestial phenomenon attack. Where did this tree come from? Why does it look like the legendary world tree? The people of the Templar Hall were all shocked. The Seven Saint Prince was even more devastated. Many of the Grand Elders' faces were as dark as water. Their hearts were filled with anger and their faces were filled with shock as if they had seen a demon. This swaying divine tree towered into the sky, and it was over 3 kilometers tall. Between its branches, there were sparkling and translucent stars that flickered and flickered. Green strands of primordial aura hung down, and the tree trunk was still constantly extending into the void, as if it could hold up the sky and connect to the universe. It was too shocking. Celestial Master Jiang is invincible. Invincible. Countless giants and fallen angels cheered. But then something even more shocking happened. Jiang Tian had no intention of retreating at all. He stepped into the air and soared into the sky, rushing towards the first sacred mountain like a rainbow. Good. He is going to soar 90,000 miles. Celestial Master Jiang is going to attack. Overturn the Templar Hall. Good job, Celestial Master Jiang. Crushing the Saint Emperor is like beating a dog. The other experts of the giant tribe and the fallen angel tribe felt their blood boiling. They were overjoyed, cheering loudly. Jiang Tian's power was beyond their imagination. He could actually neutralize the attack of a celestial phenomenon cultivator. Chapter 1047. Kill again. The Pope's face was as gloomy as water. His eyes were bursting with cold, murderous intent. He raised his right hand and waved it heavily. Boom. Another ancient scroll unfurled above Jiang Tian's head. In the painting, heavy snow filled the air. It was a world of ice and snow and an extreme chill spread out. The snow was like a mat, and the ice crystals were like millstones, pouring down from the painting. The snow ice crystals were all sparkling and translucent like crystals. They were extremely beautiful. Looked beautiful, but it was extremely dangerous. The surrounding temperature dropped rapidly and reached absolute zero. Zhang Tian had encountered a few overlords who were good at ice attacks on Earth, such as the Ice Witch of Caucasus, the heaven-reaching Master Ovina, and the Snow Demon on the Sword Tomb Island. However, their ice and snow attacks, be it in terms of speed or scale, were far too inferior when compared to this scroll. Their ice attacks could only cover an area of 1 to 2 kilometers or even a few hundred meters. Also, casting spells required a certain amount of time. If the opponent was fast enough, they could quickly escape. But once the scroll was unfurled, an area of 100 miles would be frozen and the temperature would drop to absolute zero. All living things would be killed. Even though the sun was very close and shot out thousands of golden rays, it couldn't melt the ice at all. Even though Zhang Tian used his true essence to protect himself, Zhang Tian and Huang Linger were quickly covered in a layer of white frost. Their eyebrows and hair instantly turned white like two snowmen. Huang Linger was so cold that she shivered. Her body stiffened and her lips turned purple. Even the whirling divine tree stopped growing. The frosty yellow leaves withered as if its life was about to be cut off. Kill again. Seeing that Zhang Tian seemed to be frozen, the Holy Emperor sneered. A savage smile suddenly appeared on the Sage Emperor's unperturbed face, and his chilling killing intent grew even thicker. Boom. Before Zhang Tian could break free from the snow weather phenomenon, another scroll was unfurled. This time, a white lightning bolt as thick as a water bucket struck down and stretched for several kilometers. It was like a dragon baring its fangs and brandishing its claws as it struck down at Zhang Tian and Huang Linger. This lightning bolt was extremely powerful. All kinds of extremely rare electricity and energy were like arrows piercing through the heart. It instantly turned titanium into atoms. Holy Emperor, you have successfully angered me. Are you forcing me to use my cruelest killing move? Today I will tear you to pieces. Zhang Tian looked at the weak Huang Linger and said slowly with a cold and fervent murderous intent in his eyes. At this time, several meridians in Huang Linger's body had already been frozen and broken. This was the first time Zhang Tian that his own people had been injured in front of him since his rebirth. Although it was just a few fine meridians and with Zhang Tian's ability he could quickly repair them after the battle ended. But to Zhang Tian this was still unacceptable. At this time Zhang Tian's anger could not be contained at all. As he spoke, starting from the corner of his mouth, the layer of ice on his body suddenly cracked and ice pieces of various sizes poured down like rain. Kang Teichu, even if you are a peerless genius, even if you are the reincarnation of an old demon like in the legends, even if you are a nascent soul old monster, I can still kill you. Because the power of the heavenly state's Sage Hall is not something you can imagine. The Sage Emperor rose to his feet and proudly roared. He thought that once the lightning scroll was used, there was no doubt that he could kill Zhang Tian. Zhang Tian did not say a word and stepped into the void with his right foot. The void trembled and the purple lightning rings in Zhang Tian's eyes shrunk and expanded. His purple lightning eyes were instantly activated. Suddenly, two purple lightning bolts that were not inferior to the lightning scroll shot out from Zhang Tian's eyes. They became bigger and soared into the sky like giant dragons. The purple lightning dragons soared into the sky, melting the snow and ice and destroying everything. It was dozens of miles long and charged towards the lightning scroll. Boom! The three lightning bolts collided violently and tore at each other like three giant dragons. They suppressed and devoured each other but suddenly disappeared together. At this time Zhang Tian was drenched and soaked. He carried Huang Linger and soared into the sky. The swaying divine tree behind him also surged crazily. What? A trace of panic appeared on the Holy Emperor's face. He stood up and roared, "Continue to kill." Boom. The last scroll was activated. It was the descent of the heavenly fire. This type of heavenly fire was extremely powerful. It was said that the ancient deities had gathered the fanatical energy in the depths of the universe and used a secret technique to infuse it into a scroll. Its terrifying power was comparable to the true fire of the sun. One after another, giant fireballs shot out of the scroll. They were dazzling and had a temperature of 10,000 degrees that could melt gold and iron. There was nothing that could not be burned. They surrounded Zhang Tian. Kill. As Zhang Tian shouted, a black water azure dragon came out from the top of the swaying divine tree behind him. The azure dragon was several hundred meters long. Its scales were as dense as green jade. It was majestic and mighty. Like a twisted train it skyrocketed. Surrounded by dark and heavy water, it opened its bloody mouth and roared at the sky, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. The azure dragon spewed out streams of black water like a river. They crashed against the shore and poured towards the fireballs. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. Water vapor rose and white fog filled the sky. It was as if huge white clouds were constantly spreading. Under the crazily surging black water, the huge fireballs were actually annihilated and disappeared one after another. What? How is that possible? His Dharma form is so powerful that it's not even afraid of the heavenly fire scroll. That's an ancient treasure made by an ancient deity. Seeing this, the elders of the sacred hall were stunned. They couldn't believe it, as if they had seen a demon god. They had lived for a long time and had gone through thousands of battles. However, this was the first time they had seen someone as powerful and terrifying as Zhang Tian. Suppress him! The sage emperor yelled hysterically. He couldn't accept that a mortal that he had treated as an ant dared to provoke him and even had the upper hand. Kill, kill, go. The seven Saint Prince and the other senior members of the sacred clan of light broke out in cold sweat and shouted in fear. Kill. The elders seemed to have woken up from a dream. They roared in unison, either striking out with their fists or summoning their artifacts, attacking the Xianxia azure dragon, the whirling divine tree, Zhang Tian and Huang Linger. Suddenly, a palm covered the sky and thousands of rays of light flashed across a mile. They crushed the air and made the air explode. There was a spear that was like a dragon, flowing down like mercury. It was like an enormous silver waterfall as it bombarded downwards, causing the mountains to shake and the earth to shake. Its momentum was astonishing. A sword tore the sky and destroyed everything around it. The fierce and murderous sword intent could crush the divine soul of an early-stage Foundation establishment overlord. They attacked together with the power to destroy the world, as if they were going to destroy the second sacred mountain. There were light crystals in the dantian of those elders, which were equivalent to an early-stage golden core cultivator. Each of them was quite powerful. If they had come to Earth, they would have been able to defeat the superpowers in the modern army. They were overlords who could be called divine ancestors. But right then they were attacking Zhang Tian together. Today I'm going to kill you until you're terrified. No one can stop me. Zhang Tian raised his eyebrows and shouted. He was really angry and his murderous intent surged. He used the three divine bodies and the divine powers of the purple lightning eyes to his heart's content. The branches of the swaying divine tree trembled and swept in all directions. The green energy that hung down blocked all the attacks. Roar. The Xianxia azure dragon opened its mouth and a substantial sound wave came out. It crushed the spear dragon and waved its giant claws as if it were going to swallow the world. In the blink of an eye, with the whirling divine tree protecting them and the Xianxia azure dragon paving the way, Zhang Tian also broke through 5 times the speed of sound with Huang Linger in tow. In just 3 breaths they had traveled dozens of miles. They were only a few feet away from the giant square of the first sacred mountain. Kill! The 12 elders went crazy. They shouted and their blood boiled. Their power surged to the extreme. All of a sudden they pulled out their swords and jumped into the air, slashing in the air. They jumped, swung their swords and slashed at the same time as if they were the same person. Many cross-shaped light swords made of supreme-grade light crystals were condensed with a vast amount of sacred light. At this time, each sword light was several kilometers long. They were extremely sharp and could cut through mountains and rivers and destroy huge cities. In the end, the sword lights crashed down on the profound water azure dragon with the weight of Mount Tai. That combined attack was enough to kill a top golden core overlord. Clang, clang, clang. There was a loud noise as if a bullet train had hit a piece of metal. It was as if the 12 elders had been shot in the chest by a cluster-guided missile, and they were all sent flying backward while flailing their arms and legs. Many of them spurted out golden blood. Some of their light swords were broken and some of their ribs had caved in. They had apparently been seriously injured. However, they finally managed to slash the Xianxia azure dragon into a half-dead state. It let out a mournful cry and was almost annihilated. Chapter 1048. Ha Kong Teichu, it's time for you to die. Seeing this, the seventh Saint Prince coldly smiled, feeling immensely proud. Mickey also shook her head regretfully. Kang Techu was indeed very powerful, especially in a filthy place like Earth. It was even more rare for him to cultivate to such a level. However, he was still no match for the powerhouses of the Senate. The Templar is unshakable. Saint Jean heaved a sigh of relief. Huh. Seeing this, Jiang Tian was slightly surprised. He had thought that he could definitely kill his way to the first sacred mountain after activating 2 divine bodies. He didn't expect the 12 elders to be so proficient in joint attacks that they could block his attack with their swords. Jiang Tian was only slightly surprised, but the 12 elders were scared out of their wits and sweating profusely. The 12 heaven-hunting light swords combined attack was originally used to deal with the extraterrestrial demons that might invade. It was extremely powerful. They had cultivated together for hundreds of years and had already reached the level of perfection. They thought that they could even kill a nascent soul stage cultivator, but they didn't expect that they could only block one of Jiang Tian's Dharma forms. However, Jiang Tian soon calmed down. He hadn't used his full strength just now. If he did, how could the 12 elders resist? Jiang Tian stepped on the void again and his body shot up. At the same time, his divine body of gung metal was activated. Above the head of the originally flickering Xianxia azure dragon, a dazzling golden light suddenly appeared out of thin air. It was a supreme warrior holding a huge saber. This battle general was 100 meters tall, and his face was exactly the same as Jiang Tian's. His body shone with bright light like the sun in the sky. He stood ramrod straight on top of the azure dragon's head. His gaze was like lightning looking down on the world with disdain. He was arrogant and indomitable, as if he could shake the sun and moon with a raise of his hand. He had a terrifying aura of one man holding back 10,000 men. There's more. This Kang Techu can't be killed. The seventh Saint Prince looked as if he had fucked all the monsters in the Manga Mountain. He couldn't believe it. There are more divine powers. Many of the heavenly state's powerhouses exclaimed. Meiji and Saint Jean's faces turned pale as if they had seen a ghost. The Golden Gung divine body was the only divine body that Jiang Tian had cultivated to greater mastery. Right now it was only a step away from perfection. Once it was unleashed, how terrifying would its power be? It was far more powerful than the Xianxia azure dragon and the whirling divine tree. Rumble. Gengjin divine general suddenly rose into the air and flew to the top of the square. His long saber swept across the ground like mercury. The saber radiance was resplendent and spread out in the shape of a fan, covering a radius of several kilometers. Among them, 3 elders didn't even have time to let out a scream before they were sliced in half at the waist. Blood and organs rained down like rain. Clang. He stepped down, tearing apart the heavens, piercing through the clouds as he descended. An elder was directly stomped into a meat paste. His corpse exploded, erupting with countless resplendent flames of light. At this time, the other 8 elders were scared out of their wits. Chills ran down their spines. Holy light gushed out from the soles of their feet as they staggered back to the Templar Hall. Boom! Divine General Gengjin dragged his saber as he walked, covering 1,000 meters with each step. He punched out, annihilating the void. Clang! The 8 elders were startled. They immediately took out their protective Dharma artifacts. Holy light gushed out and formed hammers, giant shields and mountains trying to block the punch. But it was useless. The punch swept across the sky, shaking the earth and destroying everything. Wherever the powerful fist passed, a layer of the square's ground, which was strong enough to withstand nuclear weapons, was shaved off. Cracks intertwined and formed a spider web. Fierce wind howled, blowing sand and pebbles. Bang bang bang. Muffled sounds rang out like thunder, and the holy light apparitions exploded one after another. The 8 elders revealed looks of horror and despair. Their bones and tendons were broken and their bodies exploded at the same time. Fragments of their organs and broken bones flew everywhere. Whoosh whoosh. Jiang Tian held Huang Linger's waist and slowly landed on the square like an immortal descending to the mortal world. The whirling divine tree behind him, the Xianxia azure dragon above his head and the Gengjin divine general in front of him all shrank and disappeared into Jiang Tian's Dantian. 3 Dharma forms and infinite divine powers. That's terrifying. Yeah, he killed the ancient divine knights, broke the 4 ancient scrolls and killed the 12 elders in a flash. It's like an ancient legend. At this time, Everyone was stunned and couldn't believe it. Jiang Tian's combat power was too terrifying. The Taichu true god is invincible. Overturn the sacred hall and stomp on the sacred king's head. This world belongs to the Taichu true god. Kill. At this time the warriors of the giant race seemed to have been injected with chicken blood. They roared and shouted loudly. They were deeply encouraged by Jiang Tian, their battle blood surging like a tide, their battle intent boiling, their morale soaring to the heavens. That's too powerful. Kong Taichu is really a god. Even the ancient true gods are nothing more than that. Lu Huaxi's eyes were full of admiration. He was so excited that his hands holding his weapon trembled slightly. Who knows, maybe the Taichu true god can really destroy the sacred hall this time. As his follower, what kind of reward will I get? He knew that Jiang Tian was very strong. Otherwise he wouldn't have joined Jiang Tian. However, at this moment he felt that he had seriously underestimated Jiang Tian's strength. He only wanted a small tree, but now it seemed that Jiang Tian would very likely give him a forest. Maybe he really has the bloodline of the ancient gods. The human race on Earth can't be so powerful. He was deep in thought. He had a whole new level of respect for Jiang Tian. How is that possible? At this time the Seven Saint Prince felt as if he had been killed by all the monsters in the Manga Mountain. His heart was in pain and his heart was pounding. The elders are dead and the divine knights are dead. I'm afraid that there are not many people in the heavenly kingdom who can stop him. At this time many of the saint princes and the lords of the sacred mountain were scared and looked at Jiang Tian in horror. In the history of the heavenly kingdom, there had never been a powerful existence like Jiang Tian who could dominate thousands of miles and suppress an entire world. Saint Jean's eyes were filled with disbelief. Her face was pale and full of shock. Once Jiang Tian said that he would overturn the sacred hall and change the heavenly kingdom. However, she thought that Jiang Tian was just bragging. She didn't expect Jiang Tian to really do it. Is he really going to win? Mei Ji, the leader of the elf clan, was also in disbelief. She didn't want to surrender to the mortals on Earth and didn't think highly of Jiang Tian. However, at this moment she couldn't help but admire Jiang Tian's strength. On the platform, Jiang Tian looked neither sad nor happy. He glanced at the ashen-faced Saint King. In his previous life, Jiang Tian didn't know how many Light Saint clan members he had killed. The bloodline of the Light Saint clan members in the Heavenly Kingdom was no longer pure. Even if they condensed a light crystal, it was no challenge for Jiang Tian. Jiang Tian fed Huang Linger a pill to repair meridians. He pressed his palm on her dantian and injected a stream of true yuan to nourish her. Then he used a few healing immortal arts to repair her broken meridians. I'm sorry, Jiang Tian. I didn't help you and became a burden to you. Huang Linger's face gradually returned to normal. She was touched and apologetic. What nonsense are you talking about? Jiang Tian smiled gently and touched her head. This made her heart beat faster and her pretty face blushed. Sure enough, there's something strange. The next moment, Jiang Tian took a deep look at the huge statue next to the square, and a sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. Then Jiang Tian stepped into the air and walked with his hands behind his back as if he was taking a stroll in the park. He approached the Saint King step by step. At this moment, Jiang Tian had black hair, black eyes and a jade-like complexion. He was handsome and otherworldly, like the most perfect work of art in the hands of the Creator. He was tall and slender and every line of his body was filled with immortal charm. He also had the arrogance of an immortal cultivator. The monstrous aura he slowly exuded was no weaker than the Saint King's. Impossible. Impossible. You're just a filthy ant from Earth. How can you be so powerful? A look of panic finally appeared on the Sage Emperor's face as he staggered back several steps. At this moment he could no longer maintain his original arrogance and calmness. How can you imagine what I'm capable of? Jiang Tian sneered disdainfully. The Light Saint clan members relied on their special physiques that could control light energy, far surpassing that of mortals. But they didn't know that they were still mortals. And Jiang Tian had already cultivated 3 divine physiques, each of which was the strongest in the universe. His real cultivation level was also at the golden core level, and the divine powers and secret arts he could use were even more earth-shattering. I don't believe that I, the Saint King, can't kill an ant from Earth like you. Kill. The Saint King's face turned red, then blue and then purple. He suddenly jumped into the air and threw a punch. No matter what, he was the most powerful overlord in heavenly state. That punch was thrown. Endless holy light burst out from his dantian, surging like a tide and blazing to the extreme. In front of his chest, it turned into a sun that radiated light in all directions. It was as if it was material and it spanned across the sky. It was enough to burn down mountains and scorch the earth, and it was like a comet shooting through the sky and smashing towards Zhang Tian. Plang! Zhang Tian flicked his finger. A Gengjin finger ray shot through the air, easily slicing through the sacred sun and then slamming into the sage emperor's chest without slowing down. The Saint King let out a cry and his body was instantly sent flying like a cannonball. He crashed through a dozen temples before he managed to stabilize himself. Jiang Taichu, I'll definitely kill you today and refine you until your body and soul are completely destroyed. The Saint King had never tasted such a defeat before. He was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Boom! Just as the Saint Emperor was about to struggle to his feet, Zhang Tian's foot pierced through the clouds and tore through the air, stepping on him. "Ha! You dare to make me submit to you and become your disciple? You have a rich imagination." Zhang Tian looked down and said calmly. He stepped on the Saint King's chest as if he were stepping on an ant that he could easily crush. Chapter 1049. Didn't you call yourself a true god? Aren't you powerful and domineering? Why can't you stand up and fight with me? Zhang Tian spat on the divine emperor's face, humiliating him to the extreme, almost angering the divine emperor to death. He commanded an entire world like an emperor. He had millions and millions of believers like a true god. He was unparalleled and superior. He had never been humiliated like this before. "Kangtu, I want you to die." The divine emperor's eyes widened as he struggled and roared. "Heavenly world has always been the divine realm. I'm the sacred hall and the master of heavenly world. You're just an ant living on earth. Just wait for your divine soul to be destroyed." The divine king was full of hatred. He roared like a beast and his voice echoed 10 miles away. Suddenly, beams of holy light poured into his body from the cross throne, the pillar of faith, and from all directions. The light crystal in his dantian shook violently and shot out thousands of beams of sacred light, crushing the dimension around him. "Stop." However, Zhang Tian only snapped his fingers, and the holy light suddenly stopped moving, not moving at all. That was a strange scene. They were like tentacles, arrows, flames, and streams of water. Originally they were constantly changing, twisting, spinning, pulling, and devouring. But all of a sudden they froze in the air, motionless like modern abstract works of art. "Are you trying to detonate your light crystal?" Zhang Tian chuckled and said mockingly. "Do you feel humiliated that you can't bear? Now you've tasted the feeling of being stepped on and despised by others. Can't bear it anymore?" The sacred race of light was originally space refugees living on Earth. The human race of the ancient Earth took you in, but you rebelled against the ancient Wuxia and started a war between the East and the West. How shameless! Zhang Tian's eyes were as cold as ice as he looked down at the divine king and sneered. "You lost the war and the sky race took you in, but you repaid their kindness with ingratitude and stole their dimension. You're worse than animals." Zhang Tian's words hit the nail on the head. "You are refugees, traitors, and plunderers. You have made no contributions to the civilization of mankind. You are truly vermin. However, it's laughable that you overestimate yourself, claiming to be a heavenly deity, calling yourself a divine Dao ancestor high and mighty. You even coveted my foundation on earth, but you don't know the difference between you and ants in the eyes of a true powerhouse." After learning that heavenly state and West Earth might have spirit chi revival seeds, Zhang Tian wanted to come and investigate. But at that time, Zhang Tian didn't want to start a war with them. Instead, he wanted to work with them to restore the spirit energy on Earth. However, the Holy See and the Brahmin took advantage of Zhang Tian's serious injury to invade Wuxia, intending to annihilate Tianqing School. Using Tianqing School as a base to control the entire Earth world, this was something that Zhang Tian could not tolerate. At the end of the day, this conflict was caused by the arrogance of the heavenly state and West Earth. They thought that they were immortals and true gods. They thought that they were powerful and were high and mighty, so they dared to look down on Earth. Zhang Tian was speaking the truth, but it was especially grating to the Saint Emperor. With every word Zhang Tian said, the Saint Emperor's anger intensified. By the time Zhang Tian finished, he was already burning with rage. "Kung Te Chu. However, Even though the Saint Emperor frantically activated the light crystal, the light flames were completely suppressed as soon as they reached his chest. Gradually, the light crystal couldn't even vibrate anymore. How can this be? The Saint Emperor's face was ashen. He couldn't believe it. In my domain, killing you is as easy as killing a chicken. Zhang Tian smiled contemptuously, his eyes filled with disdain. Zhang Tian was already able to use many peerless forbidden techniques. Previously, in the Stellar Sky domain in front of the Jade Well Peak, he could already use forbidden techniques to stop tens of thousands of soldiers and everything within a few kilometers. However, at that time, it was still a little difficult for him to raise his hand to stop the golden core. After all, the golden core was an extremely terrifying energy crystal. If he used it, it would be like a nuclear explosion. Right now, he was using the newly activated domain forbidden technique. Once he used it, he was the only one in the domain. He was like a true god, controlling everything and destroying everything. Kang Techu, let go of me. The Saint Emperor struggled with all his might. However, no matter what, he couldn't break free at all. A trace of despair gradually appeared in his eyes. He actually slowly retracted his light, and the light crystal calmed down as if it had given up resisting. What else do you have to say now? A mocking smile appeared on the corner of Zhang Tian's mouth. His eyes were as cold as ice. Kang Techu, I can give you the heavenly kingdom and the countless treasures that the Saint Hall has accumulated. I can also give up the position of Saint Emperor. I only hope that you can spare my life. The Saint Emperor, who was in a desperate situation, had completely surrendered. He lowered his head, smiled humbly and wagged his tail. Do you think that I can't get these things if I kill you? Zhang Tian sneered, and the Soul Devourer burst out. A soul devourer as thick as an arm burst out from Zhang Tian's forehead, wrapped around the Saint Emperor's head, and entered his mind, searching for all his secrets. Kang Techu, what is this? Let go of me. The Saint Emperor screamed, his body convulsing as he struggled in pain. This was an unbearable torture. The soul devourer was everywhere, searching for all his secrets and memories. His mind was in so much pain that it felt like it was going to explode. Is it painful? I have always been merciful. So let's end this. After searching for all the information he needed, Zhang Tian withdrew the soul devourer, smiled and stomped down. Bang! Bam! Zhang Tian's foot pierced through the Saint Emperor's chest, and then he put the blood-stained golden core into his storage ring. The Saint Emperor's divine soul and physical body were destroyed together, and his life force was severed. His face was still filled with shock and astonishment, as if he couldn't believe that Zhang Tian had killed him just like that. Countless people were speechless, their faces filled with disbelief. The Saint Emperor, the strongest expert who had dominated the heavenly country for countless years, died just like that. He was trampled under someone's foot like a bug. Zhang Tian's foot not only killed the Saint Emperor, but it also crushed the arrogance and domineering attitude of all the experts of the Sacred Hall. This battle is over? Many people were puzzled and in disbelief. This battle is over. Yi's face was filled with admiration and respect as he looked at Zhang Tian's back like he was looking at a true god. We won. While the giants and the fallen angels were about to cheer, they suddenly realized that Zhang Tian wasn't done yet. Zhang Tian stood with his hands behind his back and looked at the edge of the square leisurely. He held the sacred hall in his arms and the 1,000-meter-tall statue of the sacred ancestor. I killed many of your descendants and destroyed your sacred hall in the holy sea on earth. Why didn't you show up? A hint of mockery appeared on Zhang Tian's lips. Are you waiting for me to destroy the sacred hall and shoot down the artificial sun before you come back to life? Kang Techu is talking to the statue of the sacred ancestor. Everyone was shocked and confused. Could it be? Lu Huaxi and Yi suddenly thought of a mysterious legend and their faces turned pale. There was extreme fear in their eyes as if they had seen a demon. In a blink, the entire place went silent. No one dared to make the slightest sound. They stared at the statue of the sacred ancestor without blinking. The stone statue was even taller than the sacred hall. The sacred hall was built by him and he held it in his arms. No one knew how long he had been there. He looked ancient and sacred, standing at the top of the world and looking down at everything. Even though everyone knew that this was just a lifeless statue, they still felt a strong sense of oppression. They couldn't help but want to kneel down and submit to it. In front of this mountain-like statue of the sacred ancestor, everyone felt as small as ants. His eyes are moving. Suddenly Yi Xiaoman screamed and her face turned pale. The statue's eyes are moving. It's real. Countless people exclaimed as if they had seen a ghost. At this moment, everyone could clearly see that his bucket-sized eyeballs had indeed moved. This was unbelievable. It was just a stone statue, but it moved. Was it going to come back to life? Sigh. The lips of the sacred ancestor's statue trembled as it let out a dry but clear sigh, distant and ancient. Is the sacred ancestor coming back to life? The sacred ancestor is coming back to life. The sacred hall has not failed. Sacred ancestor, avenge my father. Kill that demon Kangti. Hearing that sigh, countless powerful beings of the sacred hall, the owner of the sacred mountain, and the angels knelt on the ground. The seven saint prince cried and kowtowed to the statue of the sacred ancestor. The sacred ancestor has appeared. Saint Joan of Arc was trembling with excitement. She frantically kowtowed, causing blood to flow out of her smooth forehead. Fellow cultivator, you have 3 supreme divine bodies. In the future, you will definitely be able to form the nascent soul and even the Tao integration stage. You will be able to dominate a planet. This old man has been asleep for thousands of years. Why do you force me to appear? The lips of the giant statue moved, and the large pieces of stone on his face were sent flying in all directions. They smashed into the surrounding cliffs and the cliffs cracked. It was a terrifying sight. The statue of the sacred ancestor who had been awake for countless years had come back to life.